Hello, Trail Seeker, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Learn True Health podcast. Boy, do we have an exciting one for you today. I can't wait for you to hear Marcus Fernandez. I learned so much in this interview. I am so excited for you to dive in and learn what I learned because this information is life-changing. I realize there's something that you may not know about me, and that is that for the last 20 years, I have been an expert in teaching people how to eliminate anxiety. I'm a master practitioner and trainer of neurolinguistic programming and timeline therapy, and I've been working with clients for the last 20 years, turning off their anxiety. I have a tool that within 90 seconds, you can turn your anxiety completely off. And then I have more tools that teach you how to rewire the brain. When you do the tools, it rewires your brain so that it no longer creates anxiety. We briefly talk about anxiety in the interview, and he mentions how it is growing as a major, emotional and mental health issue. In fact, it's the number one, it's the most common issue. Most people at some point in their life will have anxiety. It's a normal human emotion. The problem is when it takes over, and most people don't realize how much it's controlling their life. And I teach how to make it so that it no longer controls your life. Like I said, I've been doing it for 20 years, but what I decided is instead of working one-on-one, or I even work with groups of people, I've taught it to groups of over 100 people at a time in person. What I'd like to do is give this to the world. I want to help everyone. So I have been recording a course that I am launching very soon. Go to learntruehealth.com, my website, learntruehealth.com. Go to the bottom, just scroll all the way down and get on my newsletter. And you'll be the first to know when I launch it. It is coming out very, very soon. I've been doing this work for 20 years and it still amazes me how cool it is, how much transformation can take place in such a short period of time. So if you have a loved one, especially like teenagers, even kids, this kids get this faster than adults do, by the way. So kids are great at this. As long as someone can follow directions, they can do these techniques. And the techniques work because it's how the brain works. And it's fun. It's not heady, it's not heavy. It's light and it's fun, and you get immediate results. So you feel so empowered. And then you want to do more. You want to do these techniques more so that you continue to see results. And it rewires your brain so that you get excitement and motivation and joy. And you even start to see the world differently. It's very freeing. So I'm excited to bring this to you. So if you want to get on the newsletter so that you can get first access to my course when it comes out, go to learntruehealth.com, scroll all the way to the bottom and get on the newsletter. Of course, subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so that you get notified when episodes come out, and continue sharing this podcast with those you care about. My goal is to help over 1 million people to learn true health. Now, we have millions of downloads, so I don't know if we could say we've helped 1 million people learn true health at this point. Maybe I need to create a bigger goal. I want the entire world to have access to natural medicine information. I want the entire world to know that just like today, when you listen to this episode, your jaw will be on the floor, your eyes will be wide open. You'll just be like, this is amazing. I want the world to have access to this level of healing. And that's what I want. And that's why I want to continue, doing this work, bringing this information. But if I could show you a technique that within 90 seconds, you could turn off anxiety and that it's 100% effective. How incredible is that? And why doesn't everyone know? Just like homeopathy, why doesn't everyone know? And maybe you've heard of it, but you don't know how powerful it is or how to use it. And so today's episode, we dive into that. So just know that I have things I want to teach you, and getting on my newsletter is the best way to make sure that you are up to date with everything as I release it. And then, hey, if you want to work with me one-on-one, I'm a health coach. I'm an integrative health coach, and I've been doing a holistic health coaching since 2011. And I've been doing the timeline therapy and the NLP work for the last 20 years, since 2005. So I combine them and all the other tools that I've picked up along the way. And I love helping people to, when I say learn true health, I mean gain true health in every area of their life. So if there's an area, one or more areas of your life you're really dissatisfied in, come talk to me. We can have a free phone conversation. I give a free consultation, 20-minute consultation. A lot of times I end up giving the answers and pointing people in the right direction for free, just because I want to help you. And I love talking to the listeners. Every listener I've talked to has been an amazing experience. I absolutely love you because you and I, we'd be like best friends if we lived next door. Okay. Yes. I love helping people. So if you're just like, hey, I'm stuck in this area, what should I do? I'd love to help you get there. And so if you want to talk to me for free and I can point you in the right direction, great. If you want to hire me as your health coach, great. All that information is on my website, learntruehealth.com. Just go up into the corner and search. It says right there in the menu, it says work with Ashley James. So you can check that out. I think you can also check out, there's like Ashley's awesome finds in the menu. Those are all the things that I recommend. I give every single thing there should have like a discount because I make sure I get a discount from everyone. Everything I recommend, I also use myself. I have my clients use it. I use it. My family uses it. Like everything I have in the Ashley's Awesome Finds area of my website are things that I love that have made a huge difference in my life. Like my sunlight and sauna right here. You can hear that. My sunlight and sauna is beside me. It's a full spectrum infrared sauna. So it's not just like hot. There's so much more to it. It's actually fairly cool for a sauna. You're sweating, but you're comfortable and you're getting a full spectrum of light, which is amazing because it's helping the body increase collagen. So if you're a little vain, like, I'm 45, I'm noticing, a little saggy skin, right? I'm like, I don't want that. I don't look 45, but maybe I'm 5% vain. Okay. I get it. Some people are more vain than me. Some people are less vain, but some people buy the sunlight sauna just because it helps increase collagen and make you look younger. I like all the other benefits. I think that's just an added bonus for me. I like that it helps resolve heavy metal toxicity. That was one of my major things that helped me to overcome chronic heavy metal toxicity. And helps with metabolism, helps with inflammation, helps with sleep, helps with mitochondrial health so that you've got better energy production. There's so many things. It's so cool. That's the sunlight and sauna. And that's just one of, there's like at least 12 things that I absolutely adore. So if you want to go to learntruehealth.com and in the menu, see Ashley's Awesome Finds, everything I recommend. I use myself and love it. And so if you're just like looking for cool health gadgets, especially for, Christmas coming up, Christmas, Hanukkah, birthdays, whatever, you want to buy a gift for your family or yourself, or tell your partner, tell your husband or your wife, get this for me. I had one of my BFFs did that. She got her husband to buy her a sunlight and sauna, and the whole family uses it, which is great. But that was her Christmas gift, which I thought was really cool. So yeah, there's a lot on my website. I transcribe all my episodes as well. You may not know that. So if you want to go and you're like really love a certain topic, you can read along. I've had some listeners say like I had to listen to episode 3 times and take notes because of how much I learned from it and how much it helped me. And that's why I transcribe. We take the time, the energy, the effort to transcribe the episodes so that you can read through them, or it's very searchable. So you're like, oh, what did that guy say about that thing? And then you can use the search function on your browser, learntruehealth.com. Just go to the search function on your browser and you can search. You can search the website too, but you can also search if you're on a particular page and you want to jump to a paragraph where they mentioned a certain thing, then you can use the search function. So I want to make this information as accessible as possible to help you to gain the health that you're looking for. So thank you so much for being a listener. Thank you so much for sharing this podcast with those you care about, because together we are helping millions of people to gain true health. Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 560. I am so excited for today's guest. We have with us Marcus Fernandez, who is one of the world's leading experts in homeopathy. And this is one of my favorite subjects, because homeopathy can change your life, can completely just it, I've had so many cool experiences, and every time I'm shocked it works, which is like, after a while I shouldn't be, but every time I've had these incredible, almost miraculous experiences with homeopathy. I want to let listeners know, Marcus, you have an amazing book, Homeopathy at Home, published through Hay House in the last year, and that's so cool. And coming up right away, December 8th, Kindle promotion is going to happen on December 8th. For $2.99, you can get the Kindle edition of Homeopathy at Home. But honestly, you're going to want a physical copy of this book, and you're definitely going to want to buy a few copies for your friends and family, because this is, Christmas gift worthy. It's for me, homeopathy is one of those things where it's like in the middle of the night, my kid is throwing up, or my husband wakes up with a weird symptom, and I'm, flip on a light and, just rummaging through my homeopathy kit. And every single time I've turned to homeopathy for what I consider like at home emergency medicine, not anything, ER worthy, but it has always worked. I remember this one time my husband woke up and he's like, I feel like there's a burp stuck in my chest and I can't breathe. And I feel like I'm going to like so bloated. And it's like, I want to burp and fart at the same time, but I can't. And he's like panicking and getting claustrophobic from it. And so I quickly look up that symptom and I find the homeopathy. I give it to him. He puts it, he's been struggling with this symptom for maybe 20 minutes. Give him the pellets. He puts it under his tongue. And within 30 seconds, burp, fart,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden he's completely relieved. He goes, and and I know that could sound like, well, it could have happened anyway if you hadn't given it to him. But how about this? My baby was colic and he would just scream in pain. And when I gave him the remedy, and I had to give him the right remedy, it was immediately give him relief. And same with animals, babies and animals. That's how you know it's not placebo, because a baby doesn't know that this is supposed to help them, right? And so anyway, I had horrible symptoms when this is how I knew I was pregnant. Is I had a killer migraine. I was having hot flashes. I couldn't even open my eyes. I was so dizzy. I felt like I was going to throw up. And my friend, who is a homeopath, said, okay, it's either this remedy or this remedy. So I didn't know it was going to work. I took the first remedy. That wasn't the remedy. No change. A few minutes later, I took the second remedy. Immediate 90% of all my symptoms were cut down. 90%. Like all of a sudden, I was back in the room. I was out of pain. I wasn't going to throw up anymore. My hot flash broke, like everything. And I had those symptoms through most of my pregnancy. And every time I took my constitution, it went away. And so just time and time again, I've had these really cool experiences. I'm going to eventually let you talk, I promise, but I want the listener to
Yeah, that's
know,
good.
like,
Yeah.
homeopathy is real. It works. But the thing is, like, you've got to figure out which remedy. And that's why I'm so excited to have you on the show today, because there's, thousands of remedies. And if you don't know the right one for the right symptoms, then you don't have an experience. And then that's when people go, oh, well, it doesn't work. Well, yeah, because you have to match the right homeopathic remedy to what you experience. So my last story, which I have many, many, many stories, but I'll just wrap it up to say that listeners who've been listening for a long time know that my husband's been suffering from a chronic pain that has left him debilitated for almost 3 years. And it happened right after he had botched dental work. And we have been to every practitioner under the sun. And everything we did helped a little, but then they would come back, and they'd come back like with a vengeance. And so he was having migraine level pain in his neck and up his head every day or every other day and he was basically disabled for the last almost 3 years. He got an intuitive hit. I led him in that direction to do some research in this area, but he got an intuitive hit that what he has is chronic Epstein-Barr virus. And he got a homeopathic remedy for that. Started taking it just over 2 weeks ago, and he has not had an episode since.
Wow.
And so that's what I want to say is homeopathy spans so many different layers of life. We've also had experiences with homeopathy helping to heal and overcome emotional stuckness. So it's not just physical. It's not just acute. It can be chronic, right? And it's just fascinating. So anyways, I'm going to stop talking. I just wanted to let the listener know this is how cool it is. And we shouldn't write it off as just some sugar pills. It is energetic medicine. And we give too much weight we give too much weight, we give too much weight to molecular medicine and not enough to frequency medicine. And this is, for me, homeopathy is the gold standard. So Marcus, I'm so excited to introduce my listeners to you today and all the cool things you do. You've got this amazing book. You have a really cool, and I know we're going to talk about it, really cool AI, where this AI has scanned everything all the lectures and everything you've ever done so that it's easy to, it's like almost having like a library assistant to be able to accumulate your answers and help us in a quick way. And then, of course, you have a Center for Homeopathic Education, the CHE, where people can attend both online or in person in London, but people around the world are becoming practitioners of homeopathy through your educational program. So thank you so much for taking the time. What time is it in London? What time is it in England, by the way? Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. No, thanks, Ashley. Thanks, Ashley. And it's great to hear the stories and your passion about homeopathy. It's 7:15 in the evening here. So
not too bad.
It's not too bad. It's been a good day, busy day today. But it's just great to hear your stories, and this is really, for me, with homeopathy, is people who use it and use it on a frequent basis, and it's part of their life. These are common stories that you hear, and it's like when you discover homeopathy or use it, it's like it's like a little box of magic with your remedies, because you see what it can do, and as you mentioned, from babies, children, animals, you see the power of it. And I say to everybody, if you just give it a chance, use it. What you got, the proof's in the pudding, as we say in England. It's like you've got to try it and just see it in action. Once you see it, and once you see it in somebody you may be given a remedy to, or you're taking it yourself, you see what it can do. And it is a phenomenal. I say homeopathy is the medicine of the people. It truly is. And there's very few things in life that can have an impact in people's lives, and homeopathy is one of them.
Absolutely. I thought of another one that's worth sharing. I had a mystery cough that was so painful. It lasted about 2 to 3 months. This was a year ago. And I lost my voice twice. Or maybe it was 2 years ago. Anyways, it's within the last 2 years. It was so bad that actually I had to quit the choir at church. I couldn't sing. It was so painful, and it wouldn't go away. No matter what I did all kinds of stuff. And then I finally, it's so wild that I go to my homeopath after suffering for a few months, but I'm like, oh, might as well try that. And what I love about talking to any homeopath I've ever had this experience is that they really listen intently. They're not bringing a bias in. And I'm sure it's part of the training, and maybe you can speak to that, but he listens and really he tries to hear me and understand me, doesn't interrupt, and then he asks me thoughtful questions, and then he listens. And there's a feeling of really being heard. And then he goes, okay, I want you to try blah, blah, blah. And if you don't see a result, I want you to try blah, blah, blah. So he usually gives me 2 or 3 remedies. So I had this wet, nasty cough, couldn't go away no matter what. And I tell you, I went to every holistic practitioner. I tried every herb and just everything I could under the sun. I take a few pellets, put it under my tongue. This is the experience. It felt like all of a sudden my body was transferred to the desert, and my entire sinuses dried up. I could feel it just sucking back up inside me. Everything dried out. All of a sudden I could breathe through my nose. My throat stopped hurting, stopped itching. The cough went away. Everything dried up within a minute. It was as if I had taken, a drug that makes you dry up, but it acted faster, and it was permanent. And that was the end of the cough. It was like 1 dose that day, and it was done. And it was the coolest experience of just like how neat it is that it works that quickly and effectively. And look at this. It's what, like a $7 vial of remedy. And that remedy now, I'm not going to use it all the time. It's only when you need it. So now that bottle I might have for the rest of my life. One of my best friends has an entire chest full of remedies from her grandmother.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is a cool thing. You can accumulate these remedies and then pass them on in your
Yeah.
will because you don't you only use them when you need them and they last for so long. So anyway, how neat is this? But you've been doing this for so long. Take us back. What made you want to get into homeopathy? You've been doing this for what, 30 years?
30 odd years, yeah. Well, I'm 54, nearly 55 now, and I first discovered homeopathy, and actually it's in the intro to the book. I Homeopathy wasn't in my life as a kid growing up. I came from a very working class family. You got sick, my mom would take us to the doctors, and you get some horrible medicine, which you never liked taking. So it wasn't really it wasn't part of my life at all. And I was actually in a band. I was about 20 years old. I was in a band. I was going to be a rock and roll star. That was my life. I was a singer in a band. And yeah, I never had any money, as you didn't, because you were a struggling musician. It was part of the pain and part of the artist struggle. And we were about to do a tour of Germany, and not like the Beatles. And but you only got paid when you did the gigs. So I needed some money to just get to Germany on the bus. That we were all going on a bus, and so I had to go and get myself a job. And this was like 1991, and at the time there was a bit of a recession in the UK, so it was very difficult to get a job, even a casual job. But the only job I could get, I applied for everything, all different types of jobs, and the only job I could get was working in a nursing home with the elderly with dementia. Now, actually, this was so far removed from my reality of being 20 and being in a rock band, working in a care home, and
I
doing
imagine you
that
have like
work.
black nail polish and you have like
Not,
black hair and like black eyeliner.
yeah,
You're
well, not the
dressed in
nail polish,
leather.
but yeah, that's it. Dressed in leather jacket, yeah, crimped hair, dyed hair, yeah, that's it, exactly. So I started working there, and it was like ridiculous. It was like £2.50 an hour. I mean, ridiculous, really. But looking back, and it's hard work. Anybody who's ever worked in a care home, anybody listening to this, you know what I mean. It's really tough work. And it was probably the first week in. I was having a cup of coffee in our coffee break, and there was a nurse there, and we were chatting away. And she suddenly we're talking, then she suddenly stopped, and she said to me, "You know what, Marcus? You'd make a really good homeopath." I didn't even know what that word meant. I sort of looked at her and I said, "What?" She
Would you
goes,
call me?
"Yeah, what do you call me?" She goes, "A homeopath." And she explained what homeopath was and homeopathy. And actually, she was going to do this course in homeopathy to train to be a practitioner in the September. So this was probably about May time. And she said, "Look, there's an open day for this course I'm going along to. Why don't you come with me?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" I said, no, you don't understand. I told you I'm in a band. I'm only here for a few weeks just to get some money. Then I'm gone. I've got a whole rock star journey ahead of me. And she said, no, I think you should come. Really intuitively, you should come. I mean, I thought she was crazy. I'd only met her for like the first 5-10 minutes. Made my excuses, and I left the break room. But actually, every time I saw her after that, even in the corridor, wherever I was, she said, "Marcus, I really think you should come with me to this open day." And I thought maybe she's lonely. Maybe she, I don't know, she wants somebody to go with her. And in the end, just to shut her up, I said, "Look, okay, I'm going to come with you." I thought maybe, because it's about a 2-hour drive, I thought maybe she wants somebody to go with her. I said, "I'll come with you to keep you company." She said, "But I'm not signing up." And she was so pleased. I can't tell you how pleased she was that I was going to be going with her. Anyway, roll on another sort of week or so. This is the day before this open day we were going to travel to. I woke up in the morning and had a terrible, terrible tonsillitis. And I suffered from tonsillitis since I was a kid. Really aggravated because I spent a lot of time in smoky pubs and clubs, gigging and playing, in the band. And I used to smoke and I used to drink. So this was not unusual for me. So I woke up really bad tonsillitis, and I thought, right, I'll go in to see the doctor. I usually would see the doctor, give me antibiotics. It would help. It'd always come back at some point, but at least it sort of dealt with it in that moment. But I couldn't get in to see the doctor. There was full up. There was no appointments. And I thought, right, I'm going to try this homeopathy stuff she's going on about. So I got the bus into town, found the local health food store. I went to the store and said, "Hey, do you sell homeopathy?" "Yeah, yeah." I said, "Oh, where?" I couldn't see it anyway. I said, "Oh, it's right at the back." So I went to the back and there was these shelves and shelves of these remedies, all different types of remedies, all weird and wonderful names because they're all Latin, like pulsatilla, arsenicum, sulfur. And I remember that from chemistry class. I thought, wow, that's a bit weird. Nux vomica. And I thought, oh my God, that's a great name for a band.
I
And
bet.
and there was a leaflet there, because there were so many remedies, I didn't know which one to choose. And there was a little leaflet there, and I went through the leaflet, and I looked at these remedies, and I saw one for sore throats, but also because I also had a headache, and I felt like flu-like, like a band across my head. And the remedy that sounded like me was the remedy gelsemium. So I bought the gelsemium, took it home, and I remember to this day, actually, I remember sitting in the chair, I opened this bottle with full of little white pills, and I said to myself, if this works, then I'm going to go to the open day. If this doesn't work and doesn't do anything, I'm not going to go. And I popped one of the remedies, the little white pills. Within 10 minutes, I'd fallen asleep. And I woke up
Mm.
2 hours later, and I was absolutely soaking with sweat. To the point I had to go and change my clothes. I thought, wow, that was powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And I just carried on taking them. I didn't even read the bottle. I was just taking them every couple of hours. And I'll be sweating. And I remember that night I was in the pub that night with my friends, and they said, "Oh my God, you shouldn't be out. You look terrible." And I was sweating, and I said, "Yeah, but I actually feel okay in myself." I said, "It was weird. I've now got all these weird symptoms, but actually I feel all right. Somewhere within me felt okay, like it was a good thing that this stuff was coming, this sweat." Anyway, I woke up the next morning, no tonsillitis.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't had tonsillitis since 34, 35 years later. Now, I was quite impressed by that. But, so I went to the open day with that. I thought, okay, I'm going to go. But I was not intending to sign up or anything. I was pretty impressed, I have to admit, but I didn't really quite understand it. And I went to the open day, and it was being held by the late, great Robert Davidson, who started the first homeopathic school in London in 1977. And he was talking about homeopathy. He was talking about remedies. He was talking about his experience with homeopathy. And as he was talking, I remember just going really still inside. It was like I was hearing truth for the first time. And I remember thinking, I know this. At some part of me, it wasn't my mind. It's almost like my mind just went to the side. There was an inner knowing that I knew what he was talking about, and also that it was true. And my really first thought, as my brains kicked back in again, was, if this is true, what he's saying, how come the whole world doesn't know about it?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I knew most things at 20, being that arrogant 20-year-old. And then my second thought, pretty much straight away, was, without really thinking, was, I'm going to make sure the whole world does know about it. And I signed up to that class. I had the training. This was a 4-year training. I didn't know where I was going to find the money from. I had no idea, but I knew I had to do this. I just knew it was a very, very clear insight. An insight, like, it's neutral. It's like there's no right, there's no wrong, it's like it just is. And that was the feeling. And I signed up, and the rest is history. Here I am nearly 35 years later. Been on an amazing journey with homeopathy. And I'm as in love with homeopathy as I was when I very first heard about it. I've dedicated my whole life to homeopathy, and it is amazing.
So after you took that training, what did you do? Did you just like hang up your shingle and say, I'm open for business? You start treating people? Like, how did
Yeah.
it go from there?
Oh my God. Well, I decided I wanted to see both sides of medicine. So what I did, I worked like 2 jobs. I worked in a hospital in Leeds, in north of England, and I went for a job there. It was like a nursing assistant job. It's called a healthcare assistant, where you worked on the wards, and I wanted to see both sides of medicine. So I was learning homeopathy in the course, and then I would be working on the wards. And I told him that my interview, look, I'm here, I'm studying homeopathy, but I want to see both sides of medicine. And they were great. It was a teaching hospital, and it was amazing. I worked on cardiology, I worked on psychiatry, I worked in A&E or ER, as you have in the States, orthopedic, all different, sort of specialities. I used to go on, I saw open heart surgery, bypass surgery. I used to go on call with the doctors. They used to get me to come on call with them. I mean, I had an amazing experience. I don't think that would ever happen again. It was incredible. So I really saw both sides of medicine, and also being with people, sick people, people that were in pain, people that were in a health crisis. I saw all different types of situations, people who were dying. It was an incredible experience. It really was. And I was talking about this the other day. That really made me the practitioner who I am today, because you have to be with people. It's very important, I feel, to be with people. And you said about listening. You can't think and listen at the same time. To truly listen to somebody is to be present with somebody, and truly present. And we don't get that experience in life now. It's like when we're with people of minds going in all different directions, or waiting to ask the next question they're going to ask you, or to be I think is really crucial. I really learned that being with dying people, sitting with people who may have no relatives, but there was always somebody that would sit with that person, and often that would be me in those situations on the ward. So that was an incredible experience. And then I qualified, but I was taking people's cases whilst I was training. I again at the hospital at the lunchtime, I'll be taking, because everybody knew I was studying homeopathy because I was telling everybody. I'd be treating the doctors and the nurses. They'd be coming to see me at the break time and lunchtime. I had like a little clinic going in the staff room, because it worked, and people would come. And then when I qualified, I set up a mother and baby clinic. So where I was
Oh,
in London, because I found out that there was more mothers with kids in that area of London than anywhere else in Europe per head, I set up a mother and baby clinic, and that's really how I started my practice. And yeah,
yeah.
amazing.
Talk about how safe and effective homeopathy is. That is so safe you can give it to a newborn. You can give it to an infant.
Yeah. Well, you can give it, pregnant people, or pregnant women, phenomenal in pregnancy,
Mhm.
really phenomenal. So all state, and also before that, getting people who are struggling to get pregnant and have fertility issues. But yeah, with babies particular, I mean, this is where you really see homeopathy work. And as you said it earlier on the beginning, if you want to, this thing about placebo, because often people say, oh, homeopathy, it's a load of rubbish, it's all placebo. And I always say, well, what's your experience of it? And they'll often, oh, well, I read that. Oh, you read. Okay, so you haven't. Well, why don't you try it and see how you find it? But with babies, particularly children, young but children, and I can remember I would get mothers coming, and it was normally mothers with their kids, mothers coming back with presents and chocolates and cards and thank you so much. I've had my first night's sleep, for 7 days, and because the kid's been suffering from colic or teething or whatever the situation was. And I never really understood why they were so grateful until I had my own kids, and then I realized, oh yeah, I get it now. I really get it. And in fact, even though I ran a mother and baby clinic for many years and been a practitioner many years, when I had my first child, my son, I remember he was probably a couple of weeks old, and it was the middle of the night, and it's always the middle of the night, isn't it?
Mhm.
Screaming with colic, and he was in so much pain. And as a parent, you do anything to remove your pain for your child. You'll do anything. And I remember he was like pulling his legs up, and he was in my arms, but he was angry. He was really suffering from this colic, arching his back. And I opened my remedy kit at home, and I gave him the remedy chamomilla, which for people listening, it's one of the big remedies for colic, and also teething and other things, but colic is great
Mhm.
for. And I remember I got put it on his little soft tablet on his tip of his tongue, And the moment it hit his tongue, I'm holding him, and he just I could feel his whole body just relax, and he just let out this little sigh and
Yep.
closed his eyes. And I remember thinking then, wow, homeopathy is amazing. Even though I'd had years of experience, it still is amazing to see how quickly it can work and how effective it can be. So it's super safe for children. There's no side effects with homeopathy. It's a bit like I always say it's like a key to a lock. If it's not the right key to the lock,
Yes.
then it won't work.
Yes.
Just the wrong key. That's all.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. It's just a fun little candy at that point.
to finish the story off there quickly about it being safe was, I remember one day with my daughter, she'd only be about 2 or 3, and I remember opening the door and I could hear crunch, 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 and all these tablets, sugar tablets crunching as I'm opening the door. And she'd been into all my remedies and pulled them all out, and I'd taken chunks and chunks of, of these remedies, all different remedies. Yeah, it's fine because it's safe and effective, and she's fine. There's no side effects like allopathic drugs. This is how safe homeopathy is. It's 100% safe. That's why we use it in pregnancy. That's why we use it in children.
Yeah. Well, I want to speak to the energetic medicine. This is how my sort of layman explanation for homeopathy. I say, our body is molecules and frequency.
Yeah.
And you can look at the latest PhD research, the really brainy scientists out there who are doing cool research around quantum physics.
Yeah.
And just Google the latest in quantum physics and understanding, because just in this last year, some really, really neat stuff has come out. But what we've understood for over a decade now is that molecules are both frequency and matter. That for example, the light from the sun, like photons can be both a molecule, a physical molecule, like, I'm tapping this desk, it feels physical to me, right? But a molecule can also be frequency, as in not matter, but energy.
Yeah.
And this kind of seems very like Doctor Who, sci-fi, like Star Trek. It just seems really, out there. But this is the reality we live in, is that we are in allopathic, westernized, drug-based medicine. It's all about what you can see, touch, hear. This is a physical thing, right? I could take a drug and we could, put it through some kind of computer detection that it could detect which molecules, like there's oxygen in it, there's nitrogen in it, like they could detect molecules, right? Whereas homeopathy doesn't exist it's not molecular medicine, it's frequency. And the body, because the body is more frequency than matter, it's helping the body correct the frequency signature. That's why it doesn't need to be a huge kick. It doesn't need to be this giant, it's just this gentle frequency that brings the body back into balance. So that's my layman explanation, but I love to say that because we are so focused, and we were raised in the molecular world view, and then take a frequency world view. And now we're learning more and more that frequency medicine, for example, the sunlight, right? There's different types of light waves, like red light, right?
Yeah.
These light waves, we actually have receptors on our cells for light. That light is a nutrient, but light is a frequency, right? And it can be matter. So this is cool, right? So our body takes in frequency like it's a nutrient, and it helps the body adapt and correct. So that's my understanding. And am I saying it right when I say camellia?
Chamomilla.
Chamomilla. My husband and I always say camellia, but it's chamomilla. So chamomilla, you had mentioned that for colic. It was a godsend for our son. As a toddler, would have these fits where he would be begging us to help him because he could not get out of the fit, but he didn't know how to get out of the fit. So he'd be like, I want that toy. I don't want that toy. I want that toy. I don't want that toy. It's like, well, do you want to sit down or stand up? I want, and then he would just be like, if he sat down, he'd cry. And if he stood up, he'd cry because he doesn't know what he wants. He'd have this conflict inside him.
Yeah.
And and we anytime we saw this conflict that didn't make sense, he'd be like, I don't know what I want, but
Yes,
I
that's
want
it.
this. And then the second you give it to him, he
You
doesn't
didn't
want it.
want
He
it.
throws
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
then when he throws it, he's upset that he doesn't have it over and
Yeah.
over and over again.
That's
And
Camomilla, completely
the
Camomilla.
chamomilla was
Yeah.
just like the absolute, and we see, a naturopathic pediatrician who's
Yeah.
also a homeopath, and we give him those under the tongue, and it is like that, like you said, his whole body relaxes,
Yeah.
and it breaks the cycle. It gets him out of that.
Yeah.
And we used to have to use it almost all the time. As he grew up, we use it less and less. And maybe now he's 10, almost 11. We use it maybe once a year. But when we see that pattern, that emotional pattern, where it's like he doesn't know how to get out of it himself, and he's begging
Yeah.
for help, but he's also just so aggravated by everything. We give him the chamomilla, and it is like a break state. It is such a relief.
Oh, yeah.
And it's such a godsend, right? And so when your child is suffering, you just want to help. You just want to help
Yeah,
them.
absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. So explain for those who are like, okay, you sort of talked around it, but what the heck is this thing? What is homeopathy?
So homeopathy is, well, it's a whole system of medicine. It looks at you mentally, emotionally, as well as physically. And I always use the basis of it. If you want to know the absolute basic principle of homeopathy, is the principle of like cures like, or the law of similars. So an example of that is if you chop an onion up, your eyes water, your nose runs. Well, we use onion, or a remedy called allium cepa, which is onion, as a remedy for coughs or colds with similar symptoms, streaming eyes and streaming nose. So whatever can cause something in a large amount, in a small amount, it can cure it. Another example would be, you drink lots of coffee and you're drinking too much coffee. You've had too many, double espressos, and your brain's racing at 100 miles an hour, and you start getting a bit of anxiety because your nervous system's so wound up, and like I said, you got loads of ideas, and you just all completely wound up. So that's what you get from drinking too much coffee. But we use coffee, or kefir, the homeopathic remedy, for people who have those symptoms but haven't drank any coffee. People who can't sleep because of rush of thoughts and ideas from them. Kefir is a good remedy for kids when they're Christmas is coming, so really excited about Christmas and they can't sleep. It's called ailments from joy. It's like they're too excited. That's just an overstimulated nervous system, so kefir can help with that. So it's a very beautiful, elegant law, and it's a principle. And when you've got a principle, the principle doesn't change. It's a principle is a principle. And that really is the basis of homeopathy. We're looking for remedies for people. Like we talked about chamomilla. Well, that's made from chamomile. Now, chamomile, if you take it, chamomile tea, it helps calm down the nervous system. But if you take too much of it, it can have the opposite effect, if that makes sense. So we're just looking for things in nature, and we have thousands of remedies that we use for people, and it's like a game of snap. You present these symptoms, and then we try to match a remedy that is similar to that, and that's the basis of homeopathy. And I always sort of use the analogy as well when we're looking at symptoms that five people could have a cough. Now, if you go to the doctor or the allopathic or pharmacy, you'll get one type of medicine for the cough. Well, in homeopathy, what we're looking for is, well, what type of cough do you have? Because five people could have a cough, but one person can have a dry cough. One person could have and they're very thirsty and they're very irritable. Another person could have a cough that is worse in the morning, produces this thick, yellow, bland discharge, and feels a bit weepy and a bit sensitive at the moment. The other person could have a cough that is, they cough, like spasmodic cough, and then they retch at the end of it because they can't catch their breath. And that might need another type of remedy. So what we do in homeopathy, it's not one remedy fits all conditions. We're looking at the person. We're treating the person, not necessarily the condition, and how you're doing that cough, if that makes sense, or that cold, or that sore throat. So we're a bit like a detective. We're trying to find out what are the characteristic symptoms that you've got in order to find a remedy for you. And so it's very individual. And the way that medicine's going now, it's all about treating the individual. A lot of medicine now in allopathic medicine is geared towards looking for treating the individual. if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. But so there's individual remedies, but there's also combination remedies.
Yes, that's right. So you have things like you can have remedies that are like, for example, teething. There's a combination remedy for teething, which may have, things like chamomilla in there. They may have remedies like, Kali Foss in there. It really depends. Mag Foss could be in there. So there's lots of, which are good. Combination remedies are great when you're first getting into homeopathy, because those combination remedies, one of those remedies is going to help if you can't differentiate between remedies. So that they'll help. You also get them from things like hay fever as well. So there's like there could be 2, 3, 5 remedies in there, and they're great. The only disadvantage of that is if you're using them all the time and then they stop working. Now, what that means is you need to change the potency. One of those remedies is helping, but you don't know which remedy it is, and you probably need a change of potency, which means you may need to give a higher potency.
I want to dissect this. So this is
Yes.
very interesting. So you have individual remedies that you could figure out what yours was based on
Yeah.
your collective symptoms, or
Yes.
you could take like, oh, I woke up and I'm sick. So what's that one that's always at the checkout? It starts with OCC.
Oh, the one for flu.
Yeah.
I can never pronounce it.
I can never pronounce it. I know. I'm
No,
like,
it's
it's the
French.
orange. It's an orange
Yes.
and white box. And anyways, I have
Yeah,
that in,
Oxylinum. I can never pronounce
it just starts with OCC. It's an orange
Yeah.
box. It says homeopathy for, cold and flu or whatever.
Combination. Yeah.
That
okay.
stuff works. It works
yeah,
so
yeah.
well. I always have a vial in my purse. I have a vial by my bed because if I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, ooh, I think there's like a little scratchy something.
Oxycocolinum. I think it's Oxycocolinum. That's
Yeah,
it. That's it.
that sounds
Yeah.
right.
So it's a bit
So
late in the night. It's a bit late in the day.
my husband, I'll take. Oh yeah, it's late in the night for you. We'll forgive you, and we'll forgive me because I'm,
Yeah.
I'm not an expert in this. I'm a user. I'm a fanatic user of
Yeah.
homeopathy. Actually, since I was a child, my mom
Yeah.
was super crunchy, and I'm so grateful that she would take me to homeopaths and naturopaths and chiropractors, and acupuncturists my whole childhood. So yes, I definitely am. I loved arnica because I played softball and I took a softball right to the eye, it's like baseball for
Yeah.
girls, right? Big
Yeah.
softball hit me in the eye, and my chiropractor, who I saw that same day, put arnica cream on me, and I never got a black eye, and it was just
Wow.
like the neatest thing. I've always thought that was interesting. You could also do topical, like I have
That's right.
right here, Topperson foot pain relief cream. And you know what? It's not. It's for nerve and heel and ankle
Yeah.
pain and bunions and plantar fasciitis, but I've also used it on other joints.
Yeah.
So there you go. But what you're saying is, because I didn't understand this, that it's not that, like, let's say a combination has like 5 or 6 different remedies in it. It's a combination. It's not that all 5 or 6 are
No.
acting. It's that only one
Yeah.
is the one you need, but instead of having to you figure out which one you need, you
Yes.
just take a bunch, and one is working for you and the others are just, they don't, like you said, it's the keys that don't fit in the lock.
Exactly. So it's like having a bunch of keys and one of the keys is going to fit. So you're really just increasing your odds instead of trying to work it out individually. And that's
Got
fine.
it.
And that really works until it stops working. Now, what happens in homeopathy, often you need to go, there's all different potencies, like you can have a 6C potency, 12C, 30C potency, 200C potency, it goes up and up and up. So often a remedy can work for a while and then it stops working. But if it's still indicated, you may need to repeat it again, but give it in a higher potency, which means it just goes deeper. So that's the only drawback of, I think, combination remedies, is the fact that they will work for a while, or they may work for quite a while. You may have hay fever and use the same combination every year, but then one year it doesn't work because you now need a deeper potency. So it's a good way to start off in homeopathy. And I say this in the book, is start off on some of those really first aid type remedies like arnica, as you said. So arnica, everybody should carry arnica in the car, in their purse, in the bag. It's a remedy for trauma. Any form of trauma, give arnica. I've given arnica for people that have never been well since, a head injury 20 years ago.
Wow.
And it still works because the body keeps the score. It can hold on to that trauma. You can get creams as well, like arnica cream, as you just mentioned. The only thing with arnica cream, don't put it on broken skin, because it can really irritate. So if the skin's broken, I wouldn't put arnica cream on it. You're okay with things like calendula cream or hypercal, which is hypericum and calendula. That's fine, but
Mhm.
you just got to watch arnica cream for the cream with broken skin because it can really irritate. But arnica, just arnica itself. I mean, going to the gym, before you go to the gym, when you come back, it can stop soreness, within your body because again, it's a remedy for trauma. I've had boxers that use arnica that have it in their water between rounds, and they take a swig of the water.
So smart.
Yeah, and therefore it prevents. You can take it before surgery. You can take it before
Yep.
dental work, any form of surgery. It is, and then take it afterwards. It is a phenomenal universal remedy. So it's good to start off with those. Arnica, hypericum for anything with nerve. If you trap your fingers in the door, or you're having a dental work again, you've got toothache. Even an epidural. I've had women never been well since an epidural. 2, 3, 5 years ago, and this never been well since. Terrible backache issues with, menstrual issues since the epidural, and the remedy is hypericum. It's a great remedy for puncture wounds. So, but again, bringing it back to basics, just those simple first aid remedies, because you don't need to differentiate between the remedies for that, like a cough or cold. It's very simple. Arnica for bumps and bruises, or hypericum for nerve, calendula for grazes and cuts. So these are very, very basic remedies. But when you get into coughs, then move on to coughs and colds and other things where you have to then get a few more information about the type of cough, what makes it better, what makes it worse, when did it all start? So I don't know if that makes sense.
So sometimes it's a one and done. Sometimes it's like, like you said, you have some trauma, like you bumped, you bruised, you hurt yourself, you take arnica, it's one and done. Or maybe you're going to take it every 15 minutes, or like maybe you're taking 30C every 15 minutes for
Yeah,
a few hours, or maybe I have 10M, and I have 1M
yeah,
also,
yeah,
because after a very violent childbirth, I took a very high dose. I can't remember if I took the 1M or the 10M, but I have both of them in my kit. And I was up walking, and my midwives were like, "How are you even
yeah,
walking right now?" I'm like, "I feel great. I'm not even in pain." They're like, "How are you not in pain right now?" And I'm like, "No, I
yeah,
feel wonderful." And it's so amazing how quick arnica works. So sometimes it's one and done, but
yeah,
sometimes and this is where I think people who are like just average people like me, right, who are just at home, not really knowing what they're doing, right? Okay, I have a symptom, I look it up, I take the remedy, and then the symptom changes.
yes,
I'm not better yet,
yeah,
but the same symptom isn't there anymore. So now it's like I have to chase the symptoms in a sense to help the body, get in the clear. So can we talk about that?
yeah.
That homeopathy is not, it's more about addressing the symptom in the moment.
Yeah, so basically, if we just take a couple of steps back and go, what is the remedy actually doing? So there's a difference between homeopathy, the homeopathic remedy, and say an allopathic remedy. So I use the analogy of the car dashboard. If the oil light flashes, it means there's something wrong in the engine. If you just take the bulb out or just suppress the symptoms, the engine's gonna have problems, and the car's gonna break down 2-3 miles down the road. So that's the allopathic way. You suppress the symptoms, you just take the bulb out, but there's still a problem in the engine. With homeopathy, what we do, we go into the engine, we fix the problem, and the car light goes off by itself. So anytime we have symptoms, it's the way of the body trying to communicate to us that there's an issue inside. Our symptoms often an external manifestation of some kind of internal states, some kind of things that's not in equilibrium. So what the remedy does, again, I'm going to use that key to a lock. You start the engine with the key, and the engine goes. You don't need to keep turning the key in the ignition if the engine is going. You only need to turn the key again if the engine stops. So when say somebody's got a cough, or somebody's got let's take influenza, somebody's got the flu, and the flu is gelsemium. You look at the remedy thinking, yeah, gelsemium is the remedy. So this is what you think. So you give them the remedy, and you wait. Now, I would say in something like flu, you probably need to reassess it maybe an hour or a couple of hours just to see what's happening, and you'll know within a couple of hours. So say you're treating somebody, how you feeling? Yeah, feeling a lot better, and they're now eating something, and they're feeling, they want to actually, they're actually moving around now, but before they were laying out prostrated on the couch. You can just see it. You really see it in kids. You really see it big time in kids. But say with the adult, and they're asking for something to eat, and they're actually, you can see them moving. So that's showing that their body, that remedy is just stimulate the body to start the healing process. So it's gentle, it stimulates. Again, a key to a lock. Like I said, it's got not material dose. It doesn't wear out the medicine. It's all, what it's doing is getting that engine going. Now, in a couple of hours, that they seem a lot better, so you may not need to repeat it. Then you notice an hour later they're back on the couch again, and they're complaining they've got a headache, and you feel like they're going backwards again. If it's still, the remedy is still indicated, you can repeat the dose again. You're turning the key again.
What do you mean by that? Is the same symptoms that made you think gelsemium is
Yes.
the remedy?
It's starting to start. Those symptoms are starting to come back again. They're going back into that gelsemium state. So that's an indication to repeat the remedy. Okay, so it's showing that you need to repeat again, and then you may see improvement again. If they're better, and say they were getting better, and like I said, they asked them to eat, and then a couple of hours, an hour or so later, and they're still okay, and then that's good. You may not need to repeat the remedy. It's done its work. The body, because remember, all you're doing is stimulating the body to heal itself, because all that healing wisdom they're ever going to need is within them. So what we're doing when we give a remedy, where we have a concept in homeopathy called the vital force. In Chinese medicine, it's qi. In Ayurveda, it's prana. This is what we're observing. We're observing the vital force, and this is why you give the remedy. Then you've got to observe what is happening, or if it's yourself, which is sometimes a little bit more tricky to be objective on ourselves. But are we feeling better, or is that person or that child feeling better? Now, what sometimes can happen is you give them the gelsemium, and you check in like an hour or so later after the gelsemium, a couple of hours, and said, how are you feeling? So, all my headache's gone, like the gelsemium headache's gone, and I don't feel so achy in my muscles, but I've got a really deep pains now in my bones. It feels like a really deep bone ache, and I feel really chilly, and I really want, I want warm drinks. Now, the state could have changed. Now, you take those symptoms again, that sounds more like the remedy eupatorium, which has bone aches deep in the bone. So you can shift states. And all we're trying to do is match the symptoms they've got with the remedy. Okay? So we're always observing the action of the remedy that you're giving. And I outline that in the book and different ways of doing that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And
we're following the body. We're trusting in the body's
Yes.
innate intelligence.
Yes. And you can follow it all the way till they're in the clear.
Yes, exactly.
So in that case, we're using it in an acute situation.
Yes.
What
Yeah.
about chronic issues? Can
Yeah.
we use homeopathy? Let's say someone has arthritis, or they're
Yeah.
and they blame it on their age,
Yeah.
and they're just like, but we know that we have the vital life force inside us, that our body wants to heal itself. And I've
Yes.
seen seniors, 70-year-olds, 80-year-olds, I've seen them heal their body of arthritis. We can regrow cartilage. Like, our
Yeah.
body can heal, eyesight can heal. I've seen amazing things happen when we get out of our own way. So what about chronic issues? How would we address that? Because in the acute situation,
Yeah.
it almost seems a little more cut and dry to
Yes,
chase the
yes.
symptoms.
Yeah.
But what about chronic?
Yeah. So when people, like I said, use the example of arthritis. Often the difference between acute and chronic, just to be clear to everybody listening, is acute, often there's a very clear beginning, middle, and end. So think of a fever, there's a beginning to it, there's a middle of it, and then there's an end. It's like a bell curve. And you will die of an acute disease. You don't die of chronic disease. You may suffer from chronic disease for many, many years, but often it's an acute that actually takes you in the end, like pneumonia or one of these things. So chronic is something that is long lasting, doesn't resolve, and it just drags on. And it's this a general state of ill health. So you use the example of arthritis. So, you could have an arthritis, people arthritic in their knees, and walking is, so they wake up in the morning, they feel really stiff. And you say, how do you get on in the day? Is it better if you? Oh yeah, once I get moving around, I'm fine. But that stiffness when I first get going, it's really bad. But once I get going, I'm fine. It's like I'm like a rusty gate with after a bit of oil. It's a bit rusty in that once you first start swinging it, and then after a while, with a bit of oil, I'm fine. And you may say, what makes it better and worse? Oh yeah, really a lot better if I put heat on there. It's much better if I put a hot water bottle or heat on it. I feel by the fire, it's a lot better. Now that again, you take all those symptoms of that. What makes it better? Well, it's better for heat, worse for first motion, first moving around, better for continue moving. It are symptoms of rust tox, the remedy rust tox, which is made from poison ivy. So you can give rust tox for that, or they could take rust tox like a 6C, low potency, daily, and their symptoms will improve. If it's indicated. But you may find it may get 80% better, but never gets completely better. And they may need to have some more chronic treatment, which is they need to then really see a qualified homeopath, because there's different things that we have that is a predisposition to certain diseases. And so I would say you probably would need to consult a homeopath, because what a homeopath does when they take a case, we create what's called a timeline. So you may come in with this arthritis at, say you're 63, but the homeopath will start from zero, and it will take a very, very in-depth case history of your life, of personal history of illnesses, accidents, but also emotional things that have happened in your life. And it's like your story. Sometimes if they've got access to that information, of what their birth was like, what their pregnancy was like. So, we create this map of that person's life. It's very interesting when you do it, even when you do it on yourself.
It
It's very
is. It is
interesting.
so interesting.
It's
Yes.
fascinating. So somebody could come in with arthritis and I'll say, well, so we take all the symptomatology, what makes it better, what makes it worse, whereabouts is it? We do a thing called CLAMS, which and again, it's in my book. And this is a great way to take cases anyway, even acute cases. It stands for CLAMS, stands for C is for concomitant. In other words, if they came in with arthritis, do they have any of the symptoms? So they may say, yes, I have a migraine. When my arthritis is bad, I get a really bad migraine, or whatever it is. L is for location. Where is it? Well, it's in my knees and also maybe in my elbows. A is for etiology. When did it all start? Modalities is what makes it better, what makes it worse. And then S is for sensation. What does it feel like? This is all important information for the homeopath to decide which remedy that you need. Because each remedy is like a character, has its own characteristic symptoms. But you can take all that, modalities, and then you ask the question, when did it all start? And they say, well, it started 10 years ago. Okay, when you're 53, what was happening in your life when you were 53? Oh, well, it was fine. I was working, blah, 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 and I was living, da, da, da. Okay, anything going on emotionally or? Well, actually, yeah, that's when I found out my wife was having an affair. So straight away, this is okay. So how was that? Oh, it was the worst time of my life. The worst time of my life. I found out she was having an affair with a close friend of mine. And as they're telling you the story, you can see the eyes. There's tears in the eyes and the swallowing, and you can feel the emotion in the room. And how do you feel about it? I feel like it was yesterday. I've never got over it. So when did the arthritis actually came? Yeah, a few months after that. And I went to the doctors. I got some steroids and and I've been off and on with steroids over the years. So you've got somebody presenting with arthritis of the knees or elbows or wherever it is, but actually that's the symptoms. That is the external manifestation of the internal state. But really what you've got is somebody with arthritis, which actually has been caused by grief. Because you ask the person, how have you dealt with it? Well, I'll just keep it inside. I'll just shut it away.
Yeah.
Now, if you do that, if you don't listen to the body when it whispers, you're going to listen to it when it screams.
Yes.
That suppression of emotion. And actually, honestly, I see this every day in practice. That suppression of the emotion, that emotion has to go somewhere. It has to go somewhere. Now, I'm not saying that everybody who's got arthritis who's listening is because of grief. It's not. I'm just giving you an example because it could be anything. It could be eczema. It could be psoriasis. Whatever it is, the way the body's manifested it. but we're looking for a grief remedy underneath it. So I could give them Rustox and they could be feeling better, but it keeps coming back. You repeat the Rustox and it keeps coming back, but it keeps coming back. But actually, and when the person comes back, how are you? Yeah, I'm okay, but I've been really feeling a lot about, what we discussed last time about this grief and da-da. So you've got to get to the grief because that's where the party's at. So you give them a grief remedy like Natrium Mure, the remedy called Natrium Mure, Nat Mure, which is suppression of grief. This is a grief where people have been deeply hurt, emotionally hurt, and it's such a loss or such a grief that they build a wall around themselves, around the heart, and they shut that side of them away and say, I will never love like that again. But it's such a deep, deep grief and disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't express it,
Mm-hmm.
they don't express it. But you'll say to them, do you cry? No, I never cry. Okay. But they'll cry at sad if they see a sad film or they listen to a sad record, it will bring them back. It's like they're stuck in time, they're stuck in that grief. I've
Oh
seen
my
people stuck in
gosh.
grief, 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 years stuck in this grief state. So you give them Nature Mure, the remedy, and they come back, how are you? God, my arthritis is like, 50% better. It's like, it's unbelievable. But what the hell was that remedy you gave me? Well, what do you mean? Well, I took it, and the first night I dreamt about my ex-wife, and I was so angry with her, and I was shouting in the dream, and then I was crying, and I woke up crying. I was sobbing, and I've been crying I cried for like 3 days afterwards. I didn't think I was going to stop. But how do you feel now? I feel like a weight's lifted off my shoulder. And so this is what you see. You see, because what the remedy's done is taken back to the position where they can decide again whether to hold on to that grief or whether to let it go. But they still have free will. But as the pathology starts to, as you get to the cause, and the chronic pathology starts to shift, as you're dealing with the cause behind it.
Oh
And
my
that's what we
gosh.
do, in chronic casing. And I can tell you 10,000 cases like that. But even acute. I remember this one lady, I was at a meditation class, and she came up to me and said, "Oh, Marcus, you're a homeopath, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "I've got this cough. I've had it for 3 weeks." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Tell me about it." And she described it, how it was, and what, it was quite a spasmodic cough and quite a dry cough and different things. And I said, "Well, when did it all start?" And she said, "Oh, it started about 3 weeks ago." And the question I asked her was, what was happening 3 weeks ago? This is what we do as homeopaths.
Right.
And she looked at me, and I could tell something was up. And she said, "Do you mind if we go into another room so we can sort of talk a bit more privately?" And again, she'd found out that her husband had had an affair.
Mm.
And she was in absolute grief. She'd been married for 30 years. And as she's talking to me, she's sighing like this. And the remedy is Ignatia. It's a remedy for
Yes.
acute grief. And the big
Yes.
keynote is they're sighing all the time. And it's a big cough remedy. So I gave her Ignatia, and not only did it clear the cough up, but she kicked him out of the house. And even acute things like coughs, they can have a mental and emotional element to them. It's not just they caught a virus or
Mm-hmm.
they could they could get an cough from being exposed to a dry cold wind, or it could be a grief. But that's the question you're asking. When did it all start? What was happening then? Mentally, emotionally, as well as physically.
Oh, I love that. I love the picture that you just painted for us. When our daughter died, my husband and I took Ignatia, and it was noticeable.
Yeah.
It really took the edge off. I can't even describe the pain,
Mm,
the emotional pain, which is physical. You feel it physically.
yeah.
And then I take the Ignatia, like I think I was taking it every 2 to 4 hours for the first few days, but we both were, and then it would just totally take the edge off and make it manageable.
Yeah.
And it was like, you could have told me you gave me a psychiatric drug, I would have believed you. Like I don't put my faith in allopathic medicine, but do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like it would work so well. God, are there any studies where they've taken people with, for example, depression and had them, go work with homeopaths to like work through, like, are there studies showing like we can really help people move through mental health issues and
Oh,
emotional health issues?
absolutely. I mean, in homeopathy now, there's a lot of people specializing in certain areas like anxiety. I mean, I don't know what it's like in the US, but in the UK, I mean, anxiety is going through the roof, especially in young people.
Hmm.
I mean, my sister's a child clinical psychologist, and she's just saying it's this off. She's been practicing for 25 years. So I've never seen it like this before. The
Yeah.
levels of anxiety. But if you go to there's lots of research being done on homeopathy, and if you go to the Homeopathic Research Institute, or the HRI, it's one of my graduates set it up. And he's a scientist. He was a scientist at Imperial College in London. And when he was training, I said to him, look, we need scientists who understand homeopathy. So instead of scientists on the outside looking in, you need scientists in the inside looking out.
Yeah.
And so I became a trustee when it first started. And it's now an international research institute. They have conferences all over the world. And there's so much research now on all different types of conditions. I can't think of one as you're asking about depression, but there is so much work done with things like ADHD and autism and all different mental health issues as well. Like I said, like depression, anxiety. There's amazing studies being done at the moment in the area of agro-homeopathy, which is agriculture, where they're doing studies on crops and spraying crops against certain parasites and diseases that crops get.
That
Phenomenal
is so
research
cool.
coming out.
That
So
is
interesting.
so cool. I'd
And
want to
that book,
interview. I'd want to interview like someone in the agriculture world about
yeah,
homeopathy because that is
yeah. I'll
so
get you. Yeah,
cool.
I can put you in touch
I'd love
with
that.
different
I'd
people.
put
Yeah.
me in. I want to interview more people that are like on the science end because
Yes.
here's the thing. I started this podcast. I had this. God told me, it's like I had this huge like pull 10 years ago to start this podcast. I completely changed careers. I just this is for me, it's getting the information to the people who need to hear it, the people who were
Yes.
seeking information. So I suffered with many illnesses in my 20s and early 30s, and it was natural medicine. I had to kind of like rediscover it for myself because my
Yeah.
my mom gave it to me as a kid, but then of course as a teenager I rejected everything my mom did. Like we do, like it's
Yeah.
laughable now,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then I had to come back to realize, oh, my mom was right.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
a stupid teenager, like rejecting her. But this is what we do, right? As teenagers, we're dumb. We reject everything our parents, stood for, and then we kind of come full circle. So I had to basically heal my body because I turned to Western medicine thinking it was superior because this is the programming we
Yeah.
get.
Yeah.
And had 5 diagnoses, and I was told I'd be on drugs my whole life. I was told I'd never be able to have kids. Like it was all
Yeah.
this stuff, and they were so certain about it. And then I rediscovered natural medicine, healed my body, no longer have those illnesses. And I was like, I have to, because I was the one crying in my pillow, praying for answers
Yeah.
when I was in my 20s and early 30s. And I know there are listeners who are suffering and seeking answers, and the answers are out there. And this is what you said at the beginning. Why is homeopathy not more well known? And this education needs to get out there. So that's why I do my podcast is I want to help over 1 million people to help them heal their bodies. And then we just spread it like wildfire. So that's my mission. So
Which is,
please,
fantastic. I mean, this is what I'm about. It's as I said, I'm going to make sure the whole world knows about it. And
yes.
my north star for the past 30. Oh God, so you talk about figures now. Just it seems crazy. We start talking in decades, but it's to enhance the health and well-being of humankind through the
Yeah.
education and application of homeopathy, because I think lockdown was the biggest. It was the worst thing that could happen, but the best thing that could happen, because it has really shook up the way that people view health and well-being.
Mm-hmm.
And it is our health is our real wealth. We know that. But also, I think what shocked people, I don't know what it was like in the US, but in the UK, people always thought that medicine would save them. If the worst happened, the NHS
Yep.
would save them, that medicine would save them. But if you remember, actually, for the first year, there was nothing. All you're told to do was wear a mask, stay in the house, right? And That really shocked a lot of people. They thought medical science would rescue them. And
Yeah.
there was a year before there's anything to do with a vaccine, anything like that. And that's a whole different subject. I won't get into that right now. But what I saw is a huge uptake in, we had this thing called we've still got it, called the Home Prescriber course. I would say to all of you, if you go to the website, chehomeopathy.com, you can get access to this free Home Prescriber course. We used to sell this course before the pandemic. And then I saw how much people were so disempowered and they were looking for other ways of treating themselves and their families. I said to my team, just give it away for free. And we've had over nearly 50,000 people done this short 5-hour video course on home prescribing and all the remedies that you need to know. It's a great course by one of my lecturers, Hilary Dorian, who's been a practitioner for 40 years. Please, anybody, go and watch it, go and listen to it.
Now we're not wrapping up. I just want to be clear.
Yeah.
There's definitely more questions I have for you.
Oh, no. I'm just saying what it's in my mind because I'll forget.
Yes, no, I don't. I want to make sure. Listen. So, what is the website? Is it the
chehomeopathy.com? Yeah, just
okay.
You can Google CHE home prescriber course and it'll come up. But I would say to everybody to do that. But back to my point was, so that was a huge shift. That was a huge shift I saw in people and society.
Yes.
And I think we're in a new space now, and people are looking for more natural ways to heal themselves and their families. And the crux of all of this, actually, the crux of all of it is that, as I said at the beginning, all that natural healing wisdom is within you. You have already got it. I say this to my patients all the time. You're not broke. You're perfect. Who you are is perfect. And when who you really are. So when you really embrace and embody that is an incredibly powerful thing. And all then you've got to do is find these keys which can help if you get stuck. Just help it, and just turn those keys in order to heal yourself. Like I said, as we sat here now, your heart's beating, our lungs are breathing, our cells are working. We're digesting our lunch or our breakfast or our dinner. The body's a phenomenal thing. But I think something's happened over the past 50, 60 years where we've sort of given our power away. We've given it away and we need to claim it back. Like if you've got kids, your children better than any doctor on this planet. Trust your intuition. I'm not saying you can't. I always say it's a scale. If I'm in a car accident, the first place I want to be is a hospital. I'll be taking arnica if I'm conscious, and that did happen to me. But if I've got a chronic disease, I'm going to look at other ways to get my body to heal itself before I go on that allopathic route of surgery and drugs. And just to finish this little bit piece off on my soapbox, is that remember, the pharmaceutical industry is not in the wellness business. It's in the sickness business. And as long as you're clear on that, that's fair enough. Okay, great. As long as you know it, then you're much clearer about the path that you should take.
I always think
off my soapbox now.
No, don't get off the soapbox. Please stay. Get back up. Okay, so the mindset of healing, I think, is the first step towards true health.
Yes.
Because we are raised in a system to put the medical doctor on a pedestal, to put the hospital and clinics and drugs, pharmaceutical drugs on pedestals, and to not question them, or you'll be a bad patient, and that they know what's best, right? And wait to get sick and then go see them.
Yes.
And this is the idea that we don't heal, right? That they do things to us to force our body into submission, basically.
Yes.
Okay. This is largely the view the world has. And then as individuals, we need to wake up. It's scary because we feel safe with the idea that if I'm sick, I can go to the ER, they'll make me better, everything's good. And it is a lie. Not everyone walks out of an ER. Not everyone walks out of a hospital, right? That's a lie. But it's a nice fairy tale we tell ourselves. Now, I'm not saying don't see a doctor and don't go to the ER because, like, if I was in a car crash, I would take my Arctica on the way to the ER if they
Yeah.
need to put me back together, put casts on me, and do
Yeah.
scans and maybe like do emergency surgery if I have internal bleeding. Like, that's where they shine,
Yeah.
and it's still not a guarantee. Our meat sack body will survive that, but
Yeah.
this is we need to understand that we most of the time go to the wrong physician.
Yes.
Most of the time it's and I love using the analogy that you wouldn't take your car to the plumber, but this is what we do is we take every problem, not you the listener, because you the listener are enlightened and listening to this, right? But the average person takes every problem, right? Takes their carpentry problem, takes their auto problem, takes their plumbing problem, takes their electrical problem to the plumber.
Yeah.
And the plumber gets the plumbing stuff right, but can't necessarily fix all the other stuff great. And that's what going to an MD for everything looks like, because their training is not in supporting the body's ability to heal itself.
Yes.
That's not in their wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And I once asked a medical doctor who had her own healing crisis. She went to Harvard, Harvard, top of her class, Harvard Medical. You pay upwards of $500,000 for that type of education. And, you spend between 8 and 12 years, just depending on if you're going to specialize in something, right? You're investing a great amount of time of your life
Yeah.
and energy and money. And I asked her, why is it that most doctors, most medical doctors can't see that they don't have the full toolkit of to help the body heal itself? And she said, because the way the university system is designed is they tell us, because we've invested this much money. I mean, she's paraphrasing how they
Yeah.
do it, but it's a brainwashing system where they're told, listen, everything that's worth knowing is what we teach, and if we don't teach it, it's not worth knowing. But if you go back into history, and this is you don't even need to put your tinfoil hat on for this one because it's publicly known. If you just go back 115 years or so, you will see that every medical school was funded by the pharmaceutical industry and still is. And
Yes.
now naturopathic colleges are being strong-armed into being greenwashed medical doctors
That's
instead
right.
of true naturopathic physicians. So, and you get it from Hollywood. We watch Hollywood. Hollywood does us no justice because they will constantly, put down homeopathy and natural medicine, and they will lift up in these fake stories like Grey's Anatomy. They'll lift up
Yeah.
and glorify one system of medicine, but it's only one piece of the pie or one piece of the puzzle. So you have to know what specialist to go to. So anyways, I always say this on the show because I think if you can shift your mindset and see the whole world, it's taking the wool out from your eyes. And now you see the
Absolutely.
whole world and it's go, okay, now even though it's scary because now you realize there is no safety net, you've really given a lot more faith into a system that can't really support the level of faith you've given.
Yeah.
And now, even though that's scary, because we're adults now, right? So we don't have to believe in fairy tales. Now you're empowered to go train yourself. And homeopathy is the most affordable, most effective, least, there's zero, side effects, right? So
Yeah.
it should be the first thing we turn to. Because if you wake up, like, let's say with a headache or, a knee ache or, feeling like you're throwing up or whatever, if you wake up with these symptoms, why not try homeopathy? If you can't find the remedy or you're not getting better, then call up your doctor, call up your
Yes.
naturopath, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're not saying don't see a doctor, but what if you went to homeopathy first and then 90% or more of the time you don't turn to drugs
Yeah.
because it helps the body correct itself. And then those 10% of times where, oh, it turned out it was like a major medical crisis and you did, it would be best to have interventions, then, you still turn to that. Just
Yeah.
know, you want to increase your tool belt. And you want to, so I think of your doctors as like a team that you're employing, and don't,
Exactly.
instead of them being on a pedestal, they work for you. Add
Exactly.
Add a physical therapist to your list, add a chiropractor to your list, add an acupuncture, add a homeopath to your list. Have a team that you see, but you know which one to go to for the right thing. And you can even ask them, like, when should I come to you? What's the things? Where do you specialize? Where do you shine? Where does your profession really shine? I recently I took a spill. My foot got caught on a chair, and all my weight went down on my knee. And at church, I was walking on crutches because it had just recently happened, and like everyone came up to me and said, "What, have you gone to the hospital yet? Like, what did they say? What did they do the scans?" And I'm like, "No, I'm seeing my chiropractor tomorrow. I took my homeopathy. It really helped with the pain and the bruising. I went to my chiropractor yesterday, and she goes, "Oh yeah, this joint is stuck.
Yeah.
The tib fib joint on the side of the knee was completely seized, and that's why most of my pain was coming from." She used a little activator, click, click, click. I've turned a corner in my healing. My knee went from I had to walk on crutches to I no longer have to walk on crutches. I didn't have to enter an ER,
No.
and I didn't have to take an ibuprofen. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so like, know who to go to, know who to turn to. And it's just about education and experience, so that you talk to each one of these practitioners and find out, when do I call you? When do I
Yeah.
seek your help? And I love, Marcus, that you created an at-home. You have, first of all, get Marcus's book, right? Homeopathy at Home. We'll make sure the links are in the show notes of today's podcast at learntruehealth.com or wherever you're listening. But you've got this free AI, so people, like, it's in the middle of the night and your baby's throwing up on you, right? You can ask the AI, right?
Yeah.
And all it's going to do is seek out the information that's accumulated from the 30 years of work. If you want to become a practitioner, or if you are a practitioner to some degree in medicine, and you want to add homeopathy to your list of things, you can sign up either online or in person to Center for Homeopathic Education, right? The
Yeah. Yeah. CHE
chehomeopathy.com.
school. Yeah.
And if you're like a lay person like me, I mean, I'm a holistic, I work with people. I do health coaching, but I'm not a homeopath.
Yeah.
And
I think you make a great homeopath.
thank you. I know, right? I should. I actually,
Yeah.
I've taken some courses through Joette
Joette,
Calabrese.
Joette, yeah.
I've taken some of her courses, and I
Yeah.
absolutely adore her. I love her
Yeah.
podcast, and you have a podcast. We got to talk about your
That's
podcast
right.
too.
Yeah.
And but listen, anyone can go and take that, like you said, that course that you've made for free. So we can just dive in and learn, and the more we learn, the less we feel afraid, right? Well, this is the mindset, because once we realize, oh, that system of medicine, the allopathic drug-based medical system, doesn't really have my back like I thought it did.
Yeah.
There's a level of fear that kicks in, because you realize you don't have that safety net, and then you have to realize that there are amazing systems of medicine out there that you just haven't been exposed to because of the brainwashing of the cartel, the allopathic cartel.
Yeah.
And so now it's like, welcome to reality. We just pulled you out of the Matrix, and we're making your introduction.
Yeah.
Marcus is now your guide to the real world. And so we can use homeopathy in every circumstance, both acute and chronic. And you had mentioned ADHD, and I wanted to say that one of my friends, she has 3 kids. She has never a day in her life taken a pharmaceutical drug. Her mother actually helped bring homeopathy to Washington State. She was raised, she's in her 50s.
Yeah.
Actually, she's about to turn 50. She'd kill me if I said she's in her 50s. She's about to turn. She's still in her 40s. I apologize.
Yeah, she's still in her 40s.
She's still in her 40s. Yeah, she's one of my best friends. She's still in her 40s, but she's about to be 50. But just to give the context, that she has in almost 50 years never taken a drug, never taken a vaccine. Her mom never vaccinated any of her kids. They all were incredibly healthy, not like sick a day in their life kind of thing. They grew up on homeopathy. So her kids are the same. Her kids grew up on homeopathy, never sick a day in their life, never vaccinated. And one of their children has ADHD. And so they turn to, I believe, the Banerjee protocols for ADHD.
Banerjee protocols. Yeah.
He is like he went from, struggling, right? To excelling after the Banerjee protocols for ADHD. And he absolutely glowing, like A+, excelling. He is not on any drugs. And so I don't know much about. I just keep hearing Banerjee, Banerjee, Banerjee,
Yeah.
but I don't really know what is Banerjee compared to traditional
Yeah, it's
homeopathy? What's the difference?
yeah, it's just like I said, it's the protocols, and the Banerjees were from are from Calcutta. That's the old name, Calcutta in India, and it's just a way of treating people. You know, it's like a protocol of giving remedies. And what people need to realize about homeopathy, I remember. When I was still a student, I went to India because I knew a lot of homeopathy was going on in India. And when you go to India, 100 million people use homeopathy as their primary healthcare.
Yes.
100 million. Everywhere you go, I mean, I went and I worked in some of these places, homeopathic hospitals. There's homeopathic pharmacies in every street corner. They have a whole government department called Ayush, which is Ayurveda, homeopathy, yoga. Homeopathy, during the COVID pandemic, the Prime Minister was recommending homeopathic remedies to take for COVID. It's such in part of their culture. Why? Because it's cheap and it's effective. And if you want to see homeopathy in action, go there. They'll be treating hundreds of people a day at their clinics. Actually, you know what the biggest system of medicine in the world is? I don't know if you know this, Ashley. What's the biggest system of medicine in the world?
I mean, I'd say allopathic because I grew up, in Canada and now I live
Yeah,
in the United States, and this is all we see here.
yeah.
So,
It's Chinese medicine. Chinese medicine is the number
mm,
one. Number two is homeopathy. Number three is Western medicine. So
that's amazing. Are you
I
talking
know.
about per capita, like
Yeah,
per the amount of
yeah,
people that use
yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah. It's a phenomenal thing, and homeopathy is used in South America, in Argentina, in Brazil, in Europe. I mean, something like 39% of all GPs in France use homeopathy. It comes from Germany, Switzerland, in England. The late Queen, used homeopathy all her life. She used
Hmm.
to have a remedy kit. In fact, Ainsworth Pharmacy in London is still got the royal warrants. And the king, King Charles, has homeopathy. He's the patron of homeopathy. There's homeopathic hospitals. We used to run our full-time course from the Royal Homeopathic Hospital in London. There was 5 big homeopathic hospitals in the UK. In the US, 25% of all physicians in America at the turn of the 20th century were homeopaths. You had homeopathic hospitals all over America. You had what we call, asylums, homeopathic asylums. I think the first female doctor to ever graduate was from a homeopathic medical school. It was phenomenal in America, and I've taught a lot in America. Like you don't know the Americans. You don't know your own history of homeopathy. It's
Hmm.
phenomenal.
Hmm.
And guess what happened in 1920? They outlawed it. The American Medical Association was started to outlaw homeopathy.
Because it was in direct competition with the
Of
pharmaceutical
course,
industry.
yes.
Yeah.
And it was Rockefeller, and that they did this thing called the Flexner Report, and basically it pulled all the money from public funding for these medical schools and hospitals, and that's what destroyed homeopathy in America, because it was the rise of the pharmaceutical industry. Even though Rockefeller had a homeopath all his life until the age of 96.
Hmm.
So, the history in homeopathy in America is phenomenal. This is not a new age thing. This has been around a long, long time. You look at the statistics on the flu, the 1918 flu pandemic, and all the statistics, it's all there. The cholera epidemic in 1853 in London, that they looked at the homeopathic hospital mortality rate, and they looked at the allopathic mortality rate, and the difference was phenomenal. The homeopathic, I think, had a mortality rate of 16%, where the allopathic was something like 50, 60%. All the evidence is there, but yes, back to what we're talking about, it's been suppressed, and that's why we talk about it, because it is so phenomenal. But you're right. Just back to the point about being disempowered. This is what's happened. We've given our power away. I remember my mother and my father and my grandmother. They would, the doctor was always right. It was, you give this power away. But if you give your power away, then what do you expect the results are going to be? You're going to be disempowered. You're going to be disempowered. So, yeah.
The biggest curiosity, the biggest just confusion I have, and I believe in homeopathy, but is when it comes to taking it,
Yes.
I've always, and people ask me all the time also, don't I'm sure they ask you. So let's just get it out of the
Let's
way,
do
talk
some
about it.
belief busting time, Ashley. This is belief.
I
This is
know.
the
Okay.
section of belief busting.
It
Go on.
works. It works.
Yes.
Um Dosage, strength,
Yeah.
and timing.
Yeah. Yeah.
What, like, it sort of feels willy-nilly to me. I have 6C, 30C, 200C, and it's just like, but the stores only sell 30C mostly, and some
Yeah.
6C, and they definitely don't sell 200C unless it's arnica. So
Yeah.
it's like, what, you know, when do you take
Okay.
which
Yeah.
one?
Okay. So say like let's go back to what we said before. What's the first principle? Like cures like. So the first thing you've got to do is find the right remedy that matches the person. So you say you found the right remedy that matches the person. Say it's gelsemium, okay, for flu, flu seems to be probably flu season as well now, isn't it? So it's probably a good one to do. So when you're looking at it, you've picked that remedy because of what we call the totality of symptoms. And when you're looking in an acute situation like that, you're looking for at least what we call 3 keynotes. Now, what are keynotes? These are aspects of the remedy which that you only need 3 parts of those characteristics. So the keynotes, think of when you play a song on a piano. If you play 3 notes of a well-known song or 3 chords of a well-known song, you would recognize it. And that's the same with the remedy. So for example, like the remedy bryonia, bryonia could be, say somebody's got a hot, sore, swollen ankle, they've injured it. They're thirsty for cold water, is irritable, and wants to be left alone. So that you've got like at least 3 keynotes of that remedy: irritability, thirst for cold water, and a hot, sore ankle, which is from an injury. In fact, you got 4 because they're irritable and they want to be left alone. So the best way when you first start using homeopathy is to give one remedy at a time. So we call it the single dose. So you give the remedy, you wait, and you assess the effects of the remedy. Okay. So as I said earlier on, you give the remedy, then you assess it, like say an hour later, 2 hours later. If the person's doing okay and it seems like moving in the right direction, you don't necessarily need to repeat it. If the symptoms return, it still looks like that remedy, then you would repeat it. Okay. Now, in a first aid situation, like somebody's a bang on the head or they've cut themselves, you may need to, I'd say they've got a nosebleed. You may need to give like the remedy phosphorus every 5 minutes because it's the bleeding. So you may need to give it more frequently. But if it's like a flu, as we said, or a cold or something like that, you may give it a couple of hours apart. But remember, what you're doing is you're stimulating the body. You're turning the key in the lock. I keep going back to that. But once the engine's running, once the body's doing what it needs to do, it doesn't need to be kept being repeated. Now, as far as potency is concerned, I would say, what you can find mostly at the health food stores or online, just start with a 30C. You just start with a 30C. It's what we call a middle of the road remedy. It affects the physical as well as the mental, emotional aspect. Start with that. But remember, there's no real set protocol for giving the remedy. Like I said, you just got to keep observing it and you're being guided by the person and the severity of those symptoms, if that makes sense. So it's a very individualized approach, but the more that you use it, in the beginning you want to keep giving the remedy because that's what we're sort of programmed to do. But as you learn how to give it, you learn actually, just like an acupuncture, you go see the acupuncturists, they put needles in. They're not jabbing the needles in and keep putting more needles into the same meridian. What they're doing is slowly put the needle in, very gently. They may twist it a little bit. But what they're doing is just allowing any stuck chi to flow. And this is where homeopathy is very, very gentle. So does that make sense, Ashley? I don't know if that makes sense.
You don't have to worry that you're taking a too low of a dose or too high of a
No,
dose. You just
no.
start like you said, middle of the road. Start with 30C, which is the most common that you
Most common one.
find.
Yeah.
And then you're looking to see, did that shift something? Did it shift? So if it shifted it a little, then
Yeah.
but you needed more of a kick, you'd go to 200, or like when would you go? I definitely need 200.
So you'd only go up in the potency. So you say you give the remedy gelsemium and they're starting to feel better, but they still have got the symptoms. I always ask people, do you think you need another? Yeah, I need another dose. Or people say, no, I don't think I need it. But you've got to decide that. So say you repeated it and it works. And then, so you've given 2 or 3 doses. Now, it looks like they're getting better, but it's sort of stopped working. You repeat it again, and now the headaches come back. And it's like, oh, it still looks like gelsemia, but why isn't it working? That's the indication to go to the next level of
Got it.
potency.
But if
Okay?
you're getting some results,
I
and
would
it's
stick
not,
with it.
yeah, stick with it. So the thing is like, you see how I'm still breaking myself of
Yeah.
the allopathic idea
Yeah.
of like, well, okay, it's 400 milligrams of ibuprofen,
Yeah.
but it's not enough. So now we need 800 milligrams. It's like the big is more is better, right? Stronger is better.
Yes.
And that's that allopathic mindset of which is molecular medicine.
Yeah.
Energetic medicine doesn't need to have, you don't need to punch someone in the face with the frequency, right?
No.
You know?
Exactly. That's allopathic, isn't it? It's war.
Yeah.
We've got to
Yeah.
beat.
Yeah.
We've got to fight it. We've got to beat it. No. This is your body.
Right.
You know it's like punching yourself in the face. It's like no, it's like Tai Chi. I always imagine like Tai Chi. You know, it's gentle, it's soft. You're using the body's innate wisdom and healing. It's gentle. It's not like, oh yeah, give more. That's very allopathic. Control. Remember what do drugs do to the body? They control the body. You take a drug, it control. Remember, a drug is a drug, whether it's allopathic or recreational. It's a drug, and it has every single drug has a side effect. Every single drug,
Yes.
and you can cause damage to the body. But what it's doing when you take a drug, just like say you take a painkiller. I'm not saying never take painkillers. If you need it, you do it. I'm not going to judge people for it. But what a painkiller does is basically masking the pain, but the pain's still there. You know, you go to the dentist and have dental work, and you know you maybe have anesthetic, but they're still going to be ripping you. Sorry to be graphic, but ripping a tooth with a pair of pliers out of your jaw, and the body goes, "What the hell's this?" You know, that's why there's trauma from these things. I've so many times never been well since surgery, never been well in dental work. You know, never been well since childbirth, never been well since, you know, an internal, a woman particularly, an internal examination. Be it a smear, cervical smear, be it a DNC when they scrape the inside of the womb after maybe a miscarriage or after birth. Never been well since that. It's like the body sees it as a violation. It doesn't see it as, hey, this is a great thing, having my tooth ripped out, or having an organ removed, or having some, the body's in trauma from that. So, medicine can be incredibly brutal, really. But just because you've got anesthetic, the body's still feeling that at some level, that trauma. Sorry, I don't know. I've gone on a bit of a tangent there.
No,
The
I just
medieval
like,
practices of
right.
medicine.
But this is what most of us have been through. Most of us
Yes.
have stored trauma
Yes. Yeah.
from, whatever dentistry or surgery or,
Yeah.
or like pap smear, like you said, like
Yeah.
practices, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And in that case, that might, like you said, in some cases, you do arnica even for like head trauma
Yep.
from 20 years ago, or
Yep.
the
Yep.
natrum myrrh.
Nature Mure for grief. Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't understand how many people I'm thinking I want to give nature myrrh for Christmas. Like
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
just,
Oh
that you
gosh.
just,
People.
I'm sure the listeners thinking like, you just like a bunch of friends I'm thinking about that have like not been right since, and then
Yeah.
fill in the blank, right? Since giving birth, or since,
Yeah.
someone died, or since,
Yeah.
and how many people that body is just stuck in that trauma.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what. One of the biggest things I've seen over my years of practice is never been well since bad news, and so that could be a diagnosis. I remember a friend of mine, and it's a big thing. I've seen a big thing. People being given diagnosis or bad news because people go into shock. I remember this. It was a good friend of mine. He was a cardiothoracic surgeon, and he, great surgeon, lovely man, really lovely man. And I remember talking to one day, and he was quite upset, and he was saying, "I just need to find a better way of talking to people." Because he said, when I give people the diagnoses, he says the shock from, and this is the power of the spoken word, especially from the doctor, it's incredibly powerful. And he gave me an example of a man who admitted to hospital, they'd done a scan and they'd found this tumor in his chest. And he said this was a benign tumor, right? It wasn't, it was not malignant, it was benign. So he'd seen plenty of tumors like this before. And he goes and sees the gentleman who's in this hospital bed and says, look, we've done the scan and we found a tumor. And the man goes, is it cancer, doctor? Just tell me, is it cancer? And he said, yes, it is cancer. He said, but don't worry, we can treat it. It's benign. Blah, blah. He said, but once he heard that word cancer, he said, I saw the life just drain out of him. And he said he didn't listen to anything after that. He was trying to explain to him. He said, but I knew he wasn't really listening. And he said, this is a very routine. We do this every day. We admitted it. He came in the next day. I went into the ward to go and talk to the patient, and the gentleman had passed away that night.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no reason for him to pass away.
Yep.
And that's what we call ailments from bad news or shock. It's the shock that killed him. So, these things are incredibly powerful, incredibly powerful. And, we have to be careful, especially, I think, with doctors and the power that they have and that word has with people. Quite incredible, really.
Talk about placebo. I mean, they've done studies on
Yes.
this, that there's
Yes.
placebo and nocebo, and
Yes.
people will believe if the doctor says you have 6 months to live. I mean, there's no
Yes.
training. You can't take a university course that teaches you, well, you look at the person, you look at their labs. Yep. You have
6 months.
59 days and 6 hours and 3 minutes. Like, you're not God.
No.
But they do
And
this
yeah, I've seen it. I saw it in the
it's
hospital.
ridiculous. And they die. They like
Die to the day.
compliantly to the day.
To the day, yeah.
Yeah. And there's also been really, really interesting cases of people who the tumors come and go based on what the doctors say. And it's wild. And so anyway, to talk about placebo, nocebo, our belief system, and this is why I said, like, mindset and belief system, right? You got to reprogram yourself. You have to pull yourself out of the matrix, because if you believe what your doctor says is the God-given truth, and your body can't heal itself, then like you are just plugged into the matrix. You're just, but that's how much power your mind has over your own body
Incredible.
and your own health. So I'm one of those people that rages against the machine. I'm one of those people, like, I'm a black sheep, I'm a salmon, like, however you want to say. And I think there's about 10%, because we saw it during COVID, all the, zombies walking around, or like not walking around. They're all in their homes. But we saw it. So I'm in Washington State. Everyone wore masks. In 2020 we drove for a little vacation across the border to Idaho. No one wore masks.
Yeah.
And it was like being in two different. It was like Twilight Zone. It was like it was Twilight Zone, right? And so anyway, you could go from state like Florida, for example. People were like,
Yes.
What do you mean there's a pandemic, right? Like, so there's just depending on mindset and fear. And it's really interesting how much your mind can control your health and your belief system. So break out of the matrix, reprogram yourself. You had mentioned something about maybe people have had shock from news, right? But maybe that became chronic. Would aconite still be a remedy for someone who's still in shock, like they got really bad news that shook them 13 years ago? But could they, because aconite is like the first thing I think about when someone's in shock.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, if it's the indicated remedy, if it looks like aconite, and it's aconite, you give the remedy that is showing those characteristic symptoms. So with people listening, if you're not familiar with aconite, it's one of the biggest shock remedies that you can take, and they fearful they're going to die. I mean, that's the big thing with aconite as well. It's often a remedy for cold, dry winds. People get a cold, dry wind and they get a cough or cold. Aconite's good for that, but it's a big shock remedy. But there's other remedies. So there's remedies like the remedy opium. So the remedy opium is, again, for shocks that are, again, big shocks where they basically just shut down. Think of somebody who takes opium. They can be completely out of it. And they're in this state of sort of stupor almost. That's opium. This is the homeopathic remedy, opium, not obviously the substance, but it's all the characteristic symptoms. If you took opium, you'd be in a stupor. You'd be sort of not in a coma, but you're sort of shut down. Really, it's like paralysis almost. I remember my son, he had burst appendix. And this is an interesting story. He starts developing these symptoms of pain in his abdomen. We were at home. He'd been on the river because we lived near the river, and he'd been in with his friends. He was about 11, and he just kept having this pain in his abdomen. And we gave him different remedies, different things, with the pain. But I noticed the pain was getting worse. It wasn't getting better. And I said to my wife, I think we need to get him checked out. I think this could be an appendicitis. So we took him to the hospital. We had to wait 5 hours at the hospital.
Ridiculous.
And I said, look, I think it's an appendicitis. You need to look, but we're busy. Da, 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 da. Anyway, when they finally had a look at him, the surgeon said, he's got an appendicitis. He needs to be operated straight away. So he was operated straight away. And I spoke to the surgeon afterwards, and he said, yeah, the operation went great. He said, but it was really interesting. He said, I've never seen this before. He said it had burst, the appendix. He said, but then there was this like membrane over the burst appendix, which was containing all the pus and the horrible stuff that that had burst, but the body had contained it in like a membrane. Straight away, I'm thinking that was the remedies. See, the remedies always work with the body; they don't work against it. That's a really important point to know. It always works with the body, not against it. And it was like a membrane. So I knew. I didn't say to the doctor because he wouldn't. I don't know whether we'd have probably understood. But then after about 24 hours, he was still in the hospital, and he was in so much pain. And what he had was a thing called, because they go in there to clean everything, and then they're handling all the intestines, and then they finish the operation because they have to clean everything out, making sure there's no, any pus and stuff in the peritoneum. And he was in great pain. I was looking after him then. My wife had gone home, and he was just in pain, rolling around. And basically, what he got was a thing called post-operative ileus, where because they've been handled, the intestines, they go. It's almost like a paralysis. It's like they stop. Peristalsis stops. But then there's a buildup of gas within the guts, and he couldn't pass wind, he couldn't burp, he was in so much pain. There's no physical blockage. It's basically just everything's just stopped. And the number one remedy for that, he was getting distension, he was vomiting, he was nausea, but couldn't pass gas. And so I phoned my wife, said, look, can you bring some opium in? Because these to me were all opium symptoms, or the remedy opium. And again, like when he was a little baby and I put that remedy in his mouth and put that remedy on his tongue, and as soon as he touched his mouth, this is how quick it can work. Mm-hmm. He said, Dad, and he grabbed my hand. I thought, oh my God. And then he just let out this massive big fart as the gas was released, right? That's instantaneously.
Yeah.
And then he was okay. And he could go home and so what's my point? Well, we're talking about remedy opium. So there's different remedies for shock. So that was where the body was in shock, physical shock.
Yeah.
But a great remedy for people that can't sleep when, again, from a shock, and they can hear a clock ticking, from downstairs, that their sense of awareness is heightened when
they're like in fight or flight.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And so that's the opium?
Yeah, the remedy opium.
Yeah, the remedy opium, not taking opium, although
just
both.
as
but both would work, right? But like one's healthier than the other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just to be clear, it's the homeopathic form. Yeah,
the legal form.
The legal
right?
form.
Yeah.
Exactly. So these remedies can be used for all different types of things. So yeah, it's amazing.
You reminded me because you said opium, morphine.
Morphine.
I have a family member who had a morphine prescription, and then it ended, right? He had to be on it, and then he was off of it. And I don't know if you've ever been with someone who has to get off of morphine, but it is honestly, they go through just like heroin, they're for like 2 days, 3 days, their skin is crawling, they can't sleep, they're sweating. They're just so irritable. They can't get relief, right? And they're just like, so and then no wonder they go back to the opioids, because getting down off of it. Of course, he wanted to get off of it. He's like, he was done. The pain, was gone. He was recovering, and it was so painful. And I was looking, what could we do to support
Yeah.
him? And turns out there's homeopathic remedies
Yes,
that
absolutely.
support people. Imagine a world, I'm sure you have, where a beautiful world where homeopathy is used, in every hospital, in every
Yeah.
clinic, and there's if they need the hammer, right? If they need the
Yeah.
drug, right? If they need
Yeah.
the pharmaceutical drug, they get it. But then imagine if homeopathy would help them, like, oh, you're transitioning off of an opioid, here's this homeopathy, and it just makes
Yeah.
the transition
Absolutely.
gentle for them, right? Just how many different aspects of life it supports
Yeah.
is so exciting. Where do people
And that,
buy kits? Where do you recommend? Because I'm sure someone's listening going, okay, how do I get this stuff? It
yeah.
sounds too good to be true.
Well, I would say, start off getting the remedy kits. You can get them all over the world now. I mean, obviously, I know there's kits in the UK. You basically just want any remedy kit from a good homeopathic pharmacy. I don't have any references for in the US, but there's plenty of homeopathic pharmacies in the US. But I think in the back of the book, I actually tell you about how to create your own remedy kit as well, and what to buy and what to have at home. And I
Nice.
and I and I truly, my passion is is making sure that everybody has a remedy kit in the home and starts to use it, and it becomes this part of general life where you can use it on yourself, your kids, your family members, the dog, the cat. In all my our dog and cat get remedies. It's that's the best way to start. And in the book, it tells you the top remedies to get. And remedy how to build your own little remedy or home pharmacy that you can have.
I've got like 4 remedy kits, but I still, I would say maybe, 25% of the time I still have to go out and get one because I don't have
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So I go through all of we've got them all alphabetically, ordered. So it's easier, again, always in the middle of the night for some reason, but like reaching
Always.
for it in the middle of the night. And, and yet I'm still constantly adding to it. What I want to do is buy like the $2,000 kit,
Yeah.
that has everything, right? But I do it in little, I buy
Yeah.
$50, $100, $200 kits, and it lasts so long. I just I highly implore everyone to have it. It's one of those things you sometimes you don't need it for 2 months, and then sometimes there's some 1 month where you're using like 3 remedies a day.
Yeah.
They come in seasons, but the more you learn how to
Always.
use it, the funner it gets. So you've got this book. We're all going to go get Homeopathy at Home, the book, which is just buy it on Amazon if you want. Hay
That's the
House
easiest way,
published it.
Amazon, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey
yeah.
ho.
And then on December 8th, the Kindle promotion's
Yes.
$2.99, which is cool. I like to hold physical books though, just that's just me. But it's
Well, the
fun to
good
have
thing
the
about the
Kindle.
Kindle is people can take it away with them as well as the obviously take the
Yes.
book, but people can have it on the phone or they can have it on the
Yeah.
Kindle.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You can, have easy access on the phone. And then you've got this AI.
Yes.
So some people are like, "Oh no, AI bad." Like I get like listen, I'm not, I think AI is cool, but I get like that it's like some people
Yeah.
don't like it. And so tell us about using
Yes.
your Ask Marcus AI. What does it look like to use it?
Yeah. So the base of it, I mean, I sort of developed it about 18 months ago. And what it is, I can't reach everybody all of the time. And we've also got a project in Gambia in Africa. In fact, I've just come back from there,
Cool.
because we set up a clinic there. Well, way back in 2012, one of my graduates, Samina, came to me and said, "Look, I've just come back from Gambia, and they desperately need homeopathy in Gambia because there's no healthcare system really in Gambia. It's very poor and an extremely poor country." And so we set up this mobile clinic in Gambia, where we took remedies over and we go around all the villages in a little minibus. I take graduates and students with me, and we would treat the people. And some people would have walked 2 or 3 days for us to because they knew we were coming, because there's no other form of healthcare. And so we treat under a tree, set up under the tree, treat people. We'd have 60, 70 people there, and then you move to the next village. And we've treated again around probably 25,000 people for free over the past 10 years or so. And then we built a clinic there in a village called Mandawa. And we've just reopened the clinic there because during lockdown, obviously it was all shut down, and the termites got in, and we had to sort of almost rebuild it again. And this time my emphasis is very much not just us going over there like colonialists, to treat the poor Gambians. What I want now is to train the Gambians to do it themselves. So that old expression, feed a man, give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, feed him for a lifetime. So what we're doing now is we're giving free training to the nurses there and doctors there in homeopathy so they can become practitioners themselves. Again, a certificate from CHE, but we do the proper training with them. And one thing which has been very useful is using this Ask Marcus. So what this Ask Marcus is, it's an AI clone. It's not me, but it's made of all my videos, all my books, lectures, and everything that I know about homeopathy in this clone. But you can, and again, if you buy the book, at the back of the book, there's a QR code, and it's free to use. And you can basically ask me any question, and I will speak in any language. You can speak to me, and I'll be speaking like I'm back to you like now. It's a bit weird. My kids love it. They always using it and then making me talk in particular languages, like rhyming Cockney slang and all different things. Anyway, but you can speak to me, I said, in any language, or you can text me and WhatsApp me any question that you have. So like you were saying, I was speaking to a lady the other day, said, I was talking to you for 15 minutes of the night. It was 2:00 in the morning and Johnny had a fever, and I was asking you questions, and you told me which remedy to try and take. You asked me some more questions, and it was great. It was amazing. He's done really well. So, yeah, it's a really useful tool, and I know people's anxiety around AI, but what I look at AI is how can he enhance what I do. So the people in the Gambia clinic are using it when they get stuck in order to give the patients in Gambia. So I mean, I was there. I came back on Tuesday last week. And Wednesday, sorry. And, I'd been working on this on the Monday. We saw 60 people, between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Yeah, 3 hours. We saw about 60 people. All different things, every single strangest thing you could think of as well, like snake bites and all different things. But they've been using it for the past 18 months. So it's just another way. It's enhancing what I do. I can't be there 24/7 for everybody, but at least they can get access to homeopathic information and can treat themselves and their family. So I see it as an enhancement, not a replacement.
Do you also teach homeoprophylaxis? So I have a few interviews with the late Dr. Scylla Whatcott about homeoprophylaxis, and I find it fascinating.
Amazing.
So for those who don't know, you could go to learntrail.com and type, homeoprophylaxis or Dr. Scylla Whatcott and listen to those interviews. But the idea being that we can take homeopathy after we're sick, or let's say you develop German measles, right? I survived it. It was 3 days in bed watching movies, and that was,
exactly.
And then the antibodies for that are still in my blood. I had my blood tested like 10 years ago or something. And my doctor was like, hey, look, you're immune to it still. I'm like, hey, natural immunity. Isn't that amazing? But let's say you have German measles and you have, headache and you've got a rash. You could take homeopathy during that to support your body in going through it, quickly, smoothly, and not having the least amount of problems, right? So same with measles. There's you can speak to this, but there are homeopathic remedies. Because you're not treating measles, you're looking at, okay, how you're feeling. Well, I have a headache. I have this. This is this is the type of rash. It's not just rash. This is the type of rash. It's all very descriptive. And they're like, well, that sounds like this remedy. And then symptoms change. You go, okay, now it's this remedy, and you support them in overcoming it and coming out the other side, having much better outcomes. And we know this because it's millions and millions of people. For 200, is it like over 200 years now?
Yes. Yeah.
And so we can see that it works. And then there's this other division of homeopathy, which is to me even more exciting, because what if the whole world did it? And that's taking a remedy to train the immune system so that let's say someone doesn't want to do vaccines, or their child is not going to get vaccinated, or there's countries where they're not readily available. They can do homeoprophylaxis, and it trains the immune system to have far better outcomes if they were to be exposed. And that's what Scylla came on my podcast and talked about these amazing studies where in India and also
Yeah, Cuba.
in Cuba, where they had millions of people take the homeoprophylaxis and then not get sick.
Yeah, I think that was 2.5 million people, 5 million doses. It was for leptospirosis, which is a disease caused when they have the rainy season. And basically, it's spread by rats urinating in the water supply. And the mortality rate in the areas where they did the prophylaxis, I mean, it was just phenomenal. It was virtually zero compared to the areas that they didn't. And this was done by the Finley Institute, which was, it's an allopathic institute based in Cuba. And the reason they did it was really to save money, because it was so expensive to do the normal vaccination, which cost millions of dollars to do, whereas this cost them like $200,000. And they could not get this study published in any journal around the world. They could not get it published. Yeah. Because it showed homeopathy could work and there's so many studies. You should get a guy on from Australia, Dr. Isaac Golden, who spent and he's a scientist. He has spent since the 80s researching homeopathic prophylaxis. He's got some amazing information.
I'd love to interview him. Please send me your people. Send me people you want me to interview because I'd love it.
Absolutely.
And finally, I want to make sure we talk about your podcast.
Yes.
Because, I mean, my
Which
listeners
one?
have now.
I've got 3.
Well, my listeners have now fallen in love with you. As have I. You're amazing.
Yeah.
We all want to keep learning from you. Tell us about your 3 podcasts and where can we go to find them?
Yeah, sure. So the first podcast is called Homeopathy Spotlight. It's where basically I interview people in homeopathy, some very well-known homeopaths around the world, but also not so well-known, but, some really great people. And just basically how they started and a bit like this, a discussion like this. And then there's a podcast called Homeopathy at Home, where I talk about individual things, everything from anxiety. It's an A to Z. Again, it's based around my book, but it's me talking about the top 5 remedies for anxiety, or the things you could find also in your cupboard at home, the kitchen cupboard. So I'm very much into sort of any form of sort of natural treatment, and there's so much in the kitchen cupboard that people can use and they don't realize. So I talk about that, like top 5, and just again keep it very simple about how to prescribe. And then I've got a podcast which is nothing to do with homeopathy. It's actually for men, because when my son reached around 13, I started to think about the world that he was coming into as a young man and what that meant. And so and especially with a lot of my male patients, they don't we know this, but they don't really talk about themselves or their issues. Very rarely will men look for help around their health and well-being, often until it's too late. But I saw the statistic in the UK which said the biggest cause of death of men under the age of 50 was suicide.
Oh, wow.
And the second biggest cause of death is accidents. But actually, a lot of those accidents are actually suicides. They've actually been misreported as accidents. So that really, really shocked me. And I thought, why is nobody talking about this? This is an epidemic.
Yeah.
We've all got, we know somebody's a son, a brother, a father, an uncle, a friend, a partner. And these men are really suffering in silence, and I thought, I've got to do something about this. I've got to get men talking and sharing. So I started this podcast called Beyond the Shed. Now, I don't know if you have it in the US, I think you have Man Cave, but in the UK, we have sheds, garden sheds, where we normally keep our tools for the garden, or go down to the shed to get away from the rest of the family. But it's, we potter around our sheds. So we built a studio into a shed with tools and everything. And I do it with a friend of mine, John, who's older than me. He's sort of in his 60s. And we invite men into the shed, and we've had all different types of men, young men, older men, men who've been in prison, men who are being professional athletes, comedians, famous people, TV, and it's been great, and it's had a massive impact on, what we've heard from the community, from men, but also women. That's been really surprising to me, that how many women listen to it, and the comments that we've had in emails and messages, obviously from men, but also from women, saying, "God, it's really given me another insight how men talk, and how
Yeah.
to, because once you get men together talking, yeah, we have a bit of banter in the beginning, but then, and this is what I didn't really realize, because I've been years of being a practitioner and sitting with people. Guess what happens? It ends up turning into like a consultation.
Right.
And so we end up going deep pretty quickly,
Yes.
and afterwards they go, "My God, I didn't think I was going to talk about that," you know.
Yeah.
But it's been really interesting, and also actually I've learned so much about being a man myself by doing it. You know, there's
Oh,
been
that's
some
awesome.
really, really beautiful conversations between men being vulnerable. You know, there's been
Hmm.
tears, obviously there's been laughter, and some of these themes that have come up, you know, especially with younger men as well, like young men, you know, they don't really know how to be anymore in the world. They're told to,
Yep.
you know, they can't be more like your sister, or you know, they're just very confused because of the media. I won't go into all the politics around that, but
Right.
a
Right.
lot of confusion, you know.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
And if somehow we can help men and help young men, really, you know, with wisdom and you know, life experience, then yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm just doing my bit. So yeah, it's a great thing to do around that for me.
When I was in my 20s, mid 20s, I had there was a temp worker that came and worked in the office I was in. I was a sales manager of an international training company, and she was just a beautiful person, very naive, and she had 5 kids with this great dad, great guy, and she was young for having that many kids. And where her and I were talking, and she had a great marriage and everything, but she says saying something, and I don't remember exactly what it was, some conflict, and she goes, if only my husband felt emotions, or if only men, I think she was saying men, if only men
Mm.
had emotions. And I looked at her like she said something that just didn't, like, all of a sudden I was seeing into her worldview, and I said, are you telling me you don't think men have emotions? She goes, no, no, no. Women have emotions. Men don't have emotions. And she's like, men and women don't have the same emotions. And I'm like, oh, honey, I'm like, men have them. They've been conditioned to not
Exactly.
share them. And women are we are part of the problem because we continue to hold up that conditioning,
Yeah.
right? We expect our husband to be stoic, right?
Yeah.
We think it's acceptable for a man to be angry, but
Yeah.
if he's remorseful or sad or
Yeah.
confused or grieving, we like can't handle it, right? Because you're
Right.
a man's supposed to be stronger than us. They're not supposed to be weepy. Like women get to be weepy, but men don't get to. So there's all these like double standards.
Yeah.
And yeah, there could be something, physiologically going on where the man, has a hormone issue or something, or there's some kind of
Yeah.
like there could be something underlying there. But we as women hold men almost we hold them up in a certain way to continue to conform in a toxic way,
Yeah.
and we don't realize, like, men and women both have, we all feel the same, and it's, in society it's acceptable for a woman to express them, and it's not as acceptable for a man to. And so whether the man is holding back himself, or
Yeah.
there's people around him sort of like, it's like, oh, I tried to open up and I got shot down, and so then
Yeah.
there's that gun shy. and
Yeah.
and even and I've seen it in my own marriage where, and I have I'm sorry to say this, I have the best marriage in the world. I have the best husband in the world. I am madly in love with him. It's the only thing in my life that is perfect. Um, and I even see it in our own relationship, because he'll say, like, I'm like, why didn't you share that, or why didn't you express that? And he's like, well, because I did once. He's like, cites it like, I did once 18 years ago, and you shot me down. And so he's like,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
that's how, I'm like,
Yeah.
holy crap. Like, I have to really catch myself, because my
Yeah.
reaction, he will go like, oh, it's not safe. It is not safe to open up. If I
Yeah.
react in any way, like, I need to just let him, like, make it. So my mentor, who was also my boss, that was that company, he said something just him and his wife were trainers of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and
Yeah.
timeline therapy and hypnosis. And they said something that was really beautiful. They said, a man's job in their marriage, or, in their, as a man, is to create a safe space physically for women, to make women feel so they can be vulnerable physically, they
Yeah.
can feel safe physically. But equally, a woman's job is to make men feel safe emotionally.
Yeah.
Because men are physical, like you see them hug each other, like they're trying to kill each other, like banging
Yeah.
on each other's backs. They're like, I'm hugging you, but I'm also
Yeah.
punching you as hard as I can, right?
Yeah.
Men are very physical.
Yeah.
Women are as violent with each other emotionally. You get a bunch of
Yes.
women
Oh,
together,
yeah. Yeah.
and we will, and we're best friends, but we
Yeah.
will be very like we will be vicious
Yeah.
emotionally with each other, as violent as men are as friends together, are
Yeah.
physical with each other. But we
Yeah.
have to, so women have to recognize that we need to create a safe space for a man, so they can feel, they can be allowed to be in that space emotionally with us, just as we
Yeah.
want to feel as safe physically with our
Physically.
spouse.
Yeah.
So we have a job to do as women. So I love that women are listening. And I
Yeah.
love
It's
the work
incredible.
you are doing in the world, because
Thank you.
you are making some major impacts, major changes. How many students would you say you and your the Center for Homeopathic Education has graduated?
Oh, thousands, thousands. I mean, 28 years that we've been running as a school,
Wow,
thousands of people,
cool.
that was online. Obviously, it's exploded online because we have people all over the world, from Australia, New Zealand, to North America, to Dubai, Nepal. We have people all over the world, and yeah, it's been a great thing to do, because I remember when I was a practitioner, I could only reach so many people within my own practice. And this
Yeah.
is why I started a school, because I wanted to, get to as many people as we can. I thought if I train people, then we can get to more people, and that's what's happened. And it's been a real honor and a privilege to do that. Um,
Awesome.
really, really
I'd love to have you
amazing.
back on the show,
Oh, I'll be
Marcus.
back. Actually, get me back. We'll put the worlds to rights.
Nice, nice. Yeah, exactly. You and me. Marcus Fernandez, it's been wonderful having you on the show. Of course, links to
Thank you.
everything that Marcus does is going to be in the show notes of today's podcast at learntrail.com, or wherever you're listening. We're going to make sure those links are there. I know that what's going to be under the Christmas tree of all my listeners for their family is your book, Homeopathy at Home. So excited for the work you're doing in the world. Thank you so much for coming today and
Thank
sharing
you.
with us.
Thank you. My pleasure. Really been lovely, Ashley. Thank you for having me on.
Wasn't that an amazing interview with Marcus Fernandez? I'm going to have him back on the show. Him and I talked after our interview, and I'm going to go on his show too, because I want to teach his people my technique for turning off anxiety. And he invited me to come be a guest lecturer at his school. It's the CHE, the Center for Homeopathic Education, which is the largest accredited homeopathic institution in the UK, and I'm sure in many other countries. It is worldwide online, and then you can also go in person in London. But yeah, he invited me to be a guest lecturer to teach this technique because he's educating and certifying practitioners of homeopathy, and these practitioners obviously are going to work with people, and sometimes people have anxiety, and this tool is so cool. I've taught it to practitioners and they love it. Like, I've taught it to MDs and doctors, and especially MDs who have like less than 15 minutes per client, if that. And then they come back to me and they're like, I can't believe how well that worked. That was so cool. Because instead of just whipping out their prescription pad, they're like, here, let's do this 90-second tool and turn off anxiety. And once you have that experience, it's like, okay, now you at least have one tool to get control. Now let's get some more. Let's get some more tools in your tool belt. So that's what I'm very excited to be launching soon, to be making it accessible to everyone. I don't know if you may have noticed, but the last few episodes I have been ending our episodes in a prayer for you. So if you are someone who receives prayer, you can keep listening. And, if you don't, then you can end it. It's goodbye. Thank you. I love you. Until next time, au revoir, à bientôt. And no hard feelings. But if you do receive prayer, then I would love to pray for you. And everyone, join me in this prayer. And I believe in the power of prayer, and I believe in when more than one person joins in a prayer, that it amplifies the power of it. I actually have some interviews about that, and there's science behind it. It's really cool. You can go to learntrail.com and search. I believe it's called the Power of Eight. But they've done studies. It's pretty neat. I mean, prayer is amazing, and you should just, I don't know, Google like the power of prayer, and then studies on prayer, and you'll see some really interesting things. And there's also some quantum level interesting results. Dear Father God, thank you so much for those listening. They are listening because they have a burning desire to gain the knowledge to help themselves and help their loved ones to true health. True health on a physical level, emotional level, mental level, energetic level, and spiritual level. And I pray that you fill us with your Holy Spirit, that you fill us with healing energy, and that you guide us, that you open our ears, our eyes, and our hearts so that we can receive your love, so that we can receive your guidance, so that we can be compelled and move towards the path that you can guide us towards, the answers that we seek to gain healing in all levels. I pray that you help us to forgive, that you help us to let go, to forgive, and to heal from the past, that you help us to heal the wounds, especially now that we're coming into this beautiful holiday season. So many of us gather with family, and we don't realize that we may have been holding grudges, holding on to old hurt, holding on to old pain. And my prayer is that you help us to release that, to let it go, to forgive. Because forgiveness heals us. When we say, I forgive you for the things you said, for the things you did, and I ask that you forgive me for holding this against you. When we do this, we invite healing into ourselves. And that by holding on to hate or anger or hurt, that we are only hurting ourselves. So my prayer is for the healing of our hearts, so that we can turn the page and start a new chapter, start 2026 in a beautiful way, with a fresh slate, with a cleaned heart, with a cleansed heart. Now you forgive us when we ask for it, when we come to you and we say, please forgive us for what we've done. You forgive us, and that is the most beautiful gift you give. So I ask that you help us to be Christ-like and forgive those in our lives that we've been holding grudges against, so that we too can experience that cleansed heart. Thank you for your forgiveness. Thank you for your healing. Thank you for your love, and thank you for your Son. In Jesus' mighty name I pray. Amen.